The caregiver called me and said my mother was whispering something strange in her sleep, the 3 a.m. call. The call came at 3:17 in the morning. I know the exact time because I stared at my phone for 6 full seconds before answering, watching those green numbers burn into my retinas in the darkness of my bedroom. Unknown number, Chicago area code. My mother's caregiver, Mr. Volkov. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "This is Maria. I'm so sorry to call at this hour, but your mother, she's been talking in her sleep again. Only this time." She paused. I could hear her breathing, quick and shallow. "This time she's saying names and numbers over and over, like bank accounts. And she keeps saying one phrase that, Mr. Volkov, she keeps saying, they don't know that I hear everything." I sat up in bed. The sheets pulled around my waist. My wife Elena stirred beside me, but didn't wake. "She has dementia, Maria. She says things that don't make sense. I know what dementia looks like, sir. I've been doing this work for 22 years. This is different. The things she's saying, they're specific, detailed. She mentioned your brother's name, your sister's name, account numbers with 12 digits. And she's been writing things down when she thinks I'm not looking." My hand tightened on the phone. "Writing things down? My mother can barely hold a spoon." That's what I thought too. Maria's voice dropped even lower, until I found her notebook, hidden under her mattress. "Mr. Volkov, I think your mother has been pretending." The world tilted, just slightly, just enough. "I'll be there tomorrow morning," I said. "Don't tell anyone I'm coming. Not my brother, not my sister. No one." "I understand, sir. And Mr. Volkov. One more thing." She hesitated. "Last night when she was talking in her sleep, she said your name. She said, Victor is the only one who doesn't know yet. Poor Victor. He's paying for everything, and he doesn't know what they've done." I hung up without saying goodbye. Before I continue, I want to ask you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Your support means everything, and I promise you, this story is just getting started. My name is Victor Volkov. I'm 55 years old. I've spent the last 30 years building Volkov architecture and design, from a one-man drafting table in a rented office to one of the most respected firms in the Midwest. 47 employees, 3 satellite offices, projects in 12 states. The kind of success that sounds impressive at dinner parties and feels hollow at 3 a.m. when you're staring at the ceiling, wondering why none of it seems to matter. I'm telling you this not to brag, but so you understand what I stood to lose. What they were taking from me, piece by piece, while I smiled and wrote checks and believed I was holding my family together. My mother, Irina Volkov, had been diagnosed with early-onset dementia 8 years ago. She was 74 then. The doctors said it would be slow at first, then faster. They were right about the speed, wrong about everything else. For the past 3 years, she'd been living in a private care facility in Lincoln Park, $1,400 a month, which I paid without complaint. Before that, she'd lived in her own apartment with round-the-clock care, another $8,000 monthly, also my responsibility. I'd hired Maria specifically because she came with impeccable references and a reputation for treating her patients with dignity. My brother, Konstantin, lived in a $1.2 million condo in the Gold Coast, drove a Mercedes S-Class, and worked as a consultant, which meant he showed up at my office once a month to discuss business ideas that never materialized, and leave with a AI check for $5,000 to tide him over. He was 52 years old. My sister, Natasha, had married Gregory Petrov 12 years ago. Gregory was a real estate developer who'd never actually developed anything, as far as I could tell, except elaborate explanations for why his latest project had fallen through. They lived in a house in Wilmette, a house I'd designed for them as a wedding gift, on land I'd helped them purchase. Their twin sons attended private school. Tuition, $52,000 per year for both. Guess who paid? I'm not complaining. I want to be clear about that. For 30 years, I believed I was doing what a good son, a good brother should do. I had the money. They needed help. Family takes care of family. That's what my father taught me before he died, and that's what I believe my mother would have wanted. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have imagined, was that while I was taking care of everyone, Someone was taking care of themselves, at my expense, at my mother's expense. And my mother, locked inside a body everyone thought had betrayed her, had been watching it all. The morning after Maria's call, I told Elena I had a site visit in Evanston. She barely looked up from her laptop. She ran a small interior design business and was deep in a kitchen renovation for some client in Lake Forest. "Will you be home for dinner?" she asked. "I'm not sure. I'll text you." She nodded, already back to her screen. We'd been married for 28 years. This was what comfortable looked like. This was what I'd built. The drive to Lincoln Park took 40 minutes in morning traffic. The facility, Lakeview Memory Care, occupied a converted mansion on a tree-lined street, brick and ivy, tasteful gardens, the kind of place that cost $1,400 a month and made you feel like you weren't abandoning your parent to die among strangers. Maria met me at the side entrance, away from the main desk. She was a small woman, Filipino, early 50s, with the kind of calm competence that comes from decades of watching people fade. But today, her hands were trembling. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Volkov." She led me down a service corridor I'd never seen before. "I didn't want to do this over the phone, and I didn't want anyone to know you were here." "Why the secrecy?" She stopped walking, turned to face me. "Because your brother was here yesterday, with a lawyer. They spent 2 hours in the administrator's office, with the door closed, and then they visited your mother. Konstantin brought a lawyer to see our mother, not to see her, to get her to sign something." Maria's eyes met mine. "Mr. Volkov, your mother has been ruled mentally incompetent for 3 years. She can't legally sign anything." But they had her holding a pen. I saw it through the window. Something cold settled in my chest. "Show me." My mother's room was on the 2nd floor. Corner unit, good light, a view of the garden she'd stopped being able to see 2 years ago. That's what I'd been told anyway. That's what I'd believed. Maria unlocked the door with her staff key. Inside, the room smelled of lavender and something medicinal. My mother sat in her wheelchair by the window, facing away from us. Her white hair was neatly brushed. Her hands lay folded in her lap. "Mrs. Volkov," Maria said softly, "your son is here. Victor." No response, no movement. The same vacant stillness I'd seen on every visit for the past 3 years. I walked around to face her. Her eyes were open, staring at nothing, or so it seemed. But as I crouched down to her level, something flickered in those eyes. Something that wasn't supposed to be there. Recognition. "Mama," I whispered. Maria closed the door, locked it, pulled the curtains shut, and my mother, my 82-year-old mother who supposedly couldn't remember her own name, turned her head, looked directly at me, and spoke in a voice I hadn't heard in 3 years. Vitya, the Russian diminutive of my name, the name she'd called me as a child. "Finally, I was beginning to think you'd never figure it out." I fell backward. Actually, fell. My legs gave out and I sat down hard on the floor, staring up at my mother like I was seeing a ghost. Because in a way, I was. You can talk. I can do a lot of things they don't know about." Her voice was rusty, unused but clear. Her eyes, those eyes I'd thought were empty, were sharp as broken glass. "Get up off the floor, Victor. We have a lot to discuss, and not much time." Maria helped me to a chair. My hands were shaking. My whole world was shaking. "I don't understand," I managed. The doctors said what your brother paid them to say." My mother's lip curled. "Oh, don't look so shocked. Did you never wonder why Konstantin insisted on choosing my physicians? Why he handled all my medical paperwork? Why he was always so helpful? He said he wanted to take some burden off me. He said a lot of things." My mother gestured to Maria, who crossed to the bed and lifted the mattress. From underneath, she produced a worn leather notebook. "Everything is in here. 8 years of everything. Names, dates, account numbers, conversations I overheard when they thought I couldn't understand. 8 years, Victor. They've been stealing from both of us for 8 years. Maria placed the notebook in my hands. It was heavy, heavier than it should have been. How much? I asked. My voice sounded like someone else's. My mother's eyes held mine. Your father left me $2.3 million when he died. Money I was saving for you children, for my grandchildren. She paused. There is $47,000 left. Your brother and sister have taken the rest. And now, her voice hardened, now they're coming for your inheritance too. They forged my signature on a new will, a will that gives them everything, including your share. I opened the notebook. The first page was dated 8 years ago. My mother's handwriting, cramped, careful, the writing of someone pretending her hands didn't work. September 14th, 2017. Constantine came today. He thinks I'm already gone. He talked on his phone in front of me, like I was furniture. He told someone, "The old woman has no idea. We can move another $50,000 this month. Victor won't notice. He's too busy being the hero." I turned the page, and the next, and the next. 8 years of betrayal, recorded in my mother's trembling hand. 8 years of theft, 8 years of lies. And on the last page, dated 3 days ago, a single sentence. They're planning something bigger, something final. They mentioned a lawyer. They mentioned Victor's name. Whatever they're doing, it's happening soon. I looked up at my mother. She was watching me with an expression I recognized from my childhood, the look she got when she was about to teach us a lesson we wouldn't forget. "I've been waiting," she said quietly, gathering evidence, playing dead while they picked my bones. "But I'm old, Victor. I'm tired, and I can't do this alone anymore." She reached out and took my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "I need my son, my real son, the one who always tried to do the right thing. I need you to help me destroy them." Through the window, I could hear birds singing in the garden. Somewhere in the building, a phone was ringing. The world was continuing on, normal and unchanged, while mine collapsed around me. I thought about all the checks I'd written, the $5,000 monthly to Constantine, the private school tuition for Natasha's sons, the endless loans and investments and temporary help that had bled me slowly for 3 decades. I thought about my brother's smirk when he left my office, my sister's gratitude that never quite reached her eyes. I thought about my mother, sitting in this chair day after day, year after year, pretending to be empty while she documented every betrayal. Something inside me shifted. Something that had been bending for years finally snapped. "Tell me everything," I said. "Start from the beginning." My mother smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. "That's my boy." We talked for 3 hours. Maria stood guard at the door, checking the hallway every 15 minutes, while my mother, my supposedly brain-dead mother, walked me through 8 years of meticulous documentation. Her voice grew stronger as she spoke, as if the words themselves were bringing her back to life, or maybe she'd never been gone at all. "It started small," she said, "the way these things always do. Your father died and left me comfortable. $2.3 million in savings, the house in Evanston, his pension. I was set for life. I didn't need anything from anyone." She paused, her eyes distant. "But Constantine, he always needed. You remember how he was. Always the next big idea. Always the investment that would pay off. Your father refused him every time. Said a man should make his own way. But after your father died," she shook her head, "I was weak, I was grieving, and he was my son." "How much, Mama?" "In the beginning, 10,000 here, 20,000 there. Always alone, always he would pay it back." Her laugh was bitter. "He never paid back a single dollar. Not one. And when I started to say no, when the money started to run low, that's when things changed." She gestured for the notebook. I handed it to her, and she flipped to a page near the middle. March 3rd, 2019. "Constantine brought Dr. Hendricks to see me today. A neurologist, he said. Just a checkup. But I saw them talking in the hallway afterward." Constantine handed him an envelope. "Cash." I couldn't hear what they said, but Dr. Hendricks nodded and shook his hand like they'd made a deal. I stared at the entry. "He bribed your doctor." "Doctors," my mother corrected. "Plural. There have been 4. Each one paid to confirm a diagnosis that doesn't exist. Each one willing to sign papers, saying I'm incompetent, that I can't manage my own affairs, that I need a conservator. She met my eyes. Guess who volunteered? Constantine. Constantine, with Natasha's full support. They went to court together, presented the medical evidence. The judge granted conservatorship in less than an hour. Her voice hardened. I sat in that courtroom, Victor. I sat there and watched my children lie to a judge while I pretended I couldn't understand what was happening. I could have spoken up. I could have fought. But I realized, if I fought then, I would lose. They had doctors. They had paperwork. They had each other. And I was just a confused old woman. So you waited. So I waited, and I watched, and I wrote everything down. The notebook was organized chronologically, but my mother had also created an index in the back. Names, dates, dollar amounts, all cross-referenced with obsessive precision. This wasn't the work of a woman losing her mind. This was evidence, a prosecutor's dream. I turned to a section she'd labeled transfers in careful block letters. April 2019, $85,000 transferred from my savings to Kay's investment account. Documentation signed by Kay as conservator. I was not informed. July 2019, $120,000 transferred to NNG for house repairs. The house V built for them. What repairs? October 2019, $200,000 transferred to Kay's new LLC, Volkov Ventures, dissolved. 6 months later, money gone. February 2020, $95,000 to N for twins' education fund. But V pays their tuition. Where did this money go? Page after page. Transfer after transfer. Each one signed by Constantine as conservator. Each one documented in my mother's careful handwriting, with dates and amounts that added up to over $2 million. They didn't even try to hide it, I said. My voice sounded hollow. Why would they? Who was going to check? You trusted them. The courts trusted them. And I was supposed to be a vegetable. My mother's smile was cold. They would come to visit me, Victor. Once a week, sometimes twice. They would sit in this room and discuss their plans right in front of me. Where to transfer the money. How to hide it from the accountants. How to keep you from asking questions. Keep me from asking questions. You were their insurance policy, Victor. Their backup plan. As long as you kept writing checks, kept paying for their lifestyles, they could drain my accounts without anyone noticing. Why would you look into Mama's finances when Constantine was handling everything? Why would you ask about inheritances when you were too busy being generous? She reached out and touched my hand. Her skin was papery, thin, but her grip was fierce. They used your goodness against you. They counted on it. Every month when you sent Constantine his allowance, every tuition check for Natasha's boys, every time you helped without asking why they needed so much help, you were making it easier for them to steal from me. The words hit like physical blows. Because she was right. I'd been so focused on being the good son, the responsible brother, that I'd never once questioned why my siblings, who supposedly had the same advantages I did, could never seem to manage on their own. What about the new will? I asked. You mentioned they forged something. My mother's expression darkened. Turn to the last section, the one marked Endgame. The section was only 3 pages long, but those 3 pages made my blood run cold. November 15th, 2024. K and N came together today. Unusual. They usually visit separately. I think they don't trust each other completely. But today, they were united. They brought a man I didn't recognize. Expensive suit, leather briefcase, lawyer. They thought I was asleep. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing steady. I've had 8 years to practice. The lawyer's name is Bernard Frost. He specializes in estate restructuring. I heard them discussing a new will, one that supersedes the original Papa and I created together. In this new will, everything goes to K and N, split 50-50. Victor gets nothing, but it's worse than that. They're not just cutting Victor out of my estate. They're planning to challenge his assets, too. The lawyer mentioned something about loans I supposedly made to Victor over the years. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Documentation that proves Victor owes the estate money. not the other way around. Forged documentation, of course. I never loaned Victor a penny. He never needed it. He never asked. But when I'm dead, and they're clearly counting on that happening soon, who will contradict them? I looked up from the notebook. They're planning to sue me. After you die, they're going to claim I owe your estate money. Not just sue you, destroy you. My mother's voice was steady, but I could see the anger burning behind her eyes. They've created documentation going back 20 years. Fake loan agreements with your forged signature. Fake promissory notes. Fake everything. According to their paperwork, you owe my estate over $800,000. That's insane! No court would what? Question documents signed by a conservator who had legal authority over my affairs. Question, a grieving family settling their mother's estate. She shook her head. They've thought this through, Victor. They have lawyers. They have forged evidence. And once I'm gone, they'll have no one to contradict their lies. Maria spoke for the first time in an hour. Tell him about yesterday, Mrs. Volkov. My mother's face tightened. Yesterday, Konstantin came with the lawyer again. They had me sign something, or rather, they guided my hand across a piece of paper while I pretended to be unconscious. A new power of attorney, giving Konstantin complete control over my remaining assets and the authority to execute my final wishes as documented in the new will. They forced you to sign. They didn't force. They manipulated a hand they thought couldn't resist. The signature will look shaky, uncertain, exactly what you'd expect from a woman with advanced dementia. It will hold up in court because no one will question it. She paused. Except us. I stood up, walked to the window. Outside, the garden was beautiful. Roses in bloom, a fountain bubbling peacefully, elderly residents taking supervised walks along the paths. A picture of serenity. Inside this room, my world was burning. How long do we have? I asked, without turning around. Before what? Before they expect you to die. Before they execute this plan. My mother's laugh was dry, humorless. I overheard Konstantin on the phone last week. He told someone, the lawyer I think, that the old woman won't last another month. He sounded confident, almost eager. She paused. I think he's planning to help things along. I turned sharply. You think he would? I think a man who has stolen over $2 million from his own mother, who has bribed doctors and forged documents and lied to courts, is capable of anything. Her eyes met mine. I think my son might kill me, Victor, and I think he'll make it look like natural causes, and no one will question it because everyone already expects me to die. The room was silent except for the ticking of a small clock on the nightstand, a gift I'd given her 3 years ago, thinking she couldn't see it, thinking she couldn't hear it counting down the seconds. We need to move fast, I said. Yes, I need copies of everything in that notebook, photographs of every page. Maria has already made them, 3 copies, hidden in different locations. I looked at Maria with new respect. You've been helping her all along. Maria's expression didn't change. I've been doing my job, Mr. Volkov, protecting my patient. Your mother recognized the signs 3 years ago, the way your brother looked at her, the conversations that stopped when I entered the room. She told me everything. We've been working together ever since. The phone call at 3 a.m. was planned, my mother finished. I told Maria to call you exactly that way, to make you curious enough to come alone, to make you suspicious enough to listen. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. I know my children, Victor. I know you needed to be shocked into seeing the truth. A gentle conversation wouldn't have worked. You would have rationalized, defended, made excuses. You're too kind for your own good. Not anymore, I said. My mother studied my face for a long moment. Whatever she saw there seemed to satisfy her. Good. Then listen carefully because we don't have much time. I need you to find a lawyer. Not Bernard Frost, obviously. Someone outside the family's network. Someone who specializes in elder abuse and estate fraud. I need you to get me out of this facility without Konstantin knowing. And I need you to do something that will be very, very hard for you. What? I need you to keep pretending. Tomorrow, next week, for as long as it takes. You need to be the same Victor they've always known. The generous brother, the dutiful son. The man who never suspects, never questions, never looks too closely at the gift horse's mouth. She leaned forward. Can you do that? Can you smile at the people who are trying to destroy you? I thought about Constantine's smirk, Natasha's false gratitude, Gregory's smooth excuses for why his latest project had failed, why he needed just a little more time, just a little more money. I thought about sitting across from them at family dinners, listening to them talk about struggles that didn't exist, hardships they'd invented, while they systematically looted my mother's savings and planned to steal my inheritance. Yes, I said, I can do that. Are you sure? It will be harder than you think. I walked back to her chair and knelt beside her, taking both her hands in mine. You've been pretending for 8 years, Mama. You sat in this chair and watched them steal from you, lie about you, plan to kill you, and you didn't break. You didn't give yourself away. You waited. I squeezed her hands. I can pretend for a few weeks. For you, I can do anything. Her eyes glistened. For just a moment, the sharp strategist disappeared, and I saw my mother, really saw her, for the first time in years. Tired, frightened, hopeful. I knew you'd come, she whispered. When everyone else saw a wallet, you saw a person. When everyone else took, you gave. I always knew that when it mattered, you'd be the one to save me. We're going to save each other, I said. And then we're going to make them pay for every dollar, every lie, every single day they made you sit in this room, pretending to be gone. My mother smiled. This time, it reached her eyes. That's my boy. I left the facility through the same side entrance, Maria escorting me past the security cameras she'd learned to avoid. In my jacket pocket, I carried a flash drive with photographs of every page of my mother's notebook. 8 years of evidence, 8 years of betrayal, documented in her careful, determined handwriting. In the parking lot, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, unable to drive. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. $2.3 million. That's what my father had left my mother. Money from 40 years of working in construction, saving every penny, investing carefully, never taking vacations or buying luxuries. He'd wanted her to be comfortable. He'd wanted her to never worry about money again. Now there was $47,000 left, and my brother and sister were planning to steal even that, along with whatever they could take from me. My phone buzzed. Text from Constantine. Hey, brother. Haven't heard from you in a while. Want to grab lunch this week? I have some business ideas I want to run by you. I stared at the message. Yesterday, this would have been a mildly annoying request for money dressed up as a social invitation. Today it was something else entirely. A wolf, checking on his prey, making sure the sheep was still fat and happy and unaware. My fingers moved across the screen before I could stop them. Sounds great. How about Thursday? That new steakhouse on Michigan Ave. His reply came almost instantly. Perfect. 12:30? My treat. His treat. With money he'd stolen from our mother. With money he planned to steal from me. I put the phone down and started the car. I had 2 days before lunch with my brother. 2 days to find a lawyer, develop a strategy, and learn to smile at a man who might be planning to murder our mother. The drive home felt different. The same streets, the same traffic, the same Chicago skyline I'd seen 10,000 times. But I was seeing it through new eyes now. The eyes of a man who finally understood that family wasn't blood. Family was choice. And my brother and sister had chosen to be my enemies a long time ago. They just didn't know yet that I'd finally figured it out. And by the time they did, it would be far too late. I found her the next morning, not through a Google search or a legal directory. I found her through Marcus Webb, a client I'd designed a medical complex for 3 years ago. Marcus had gone through a brutal divorce, where his ex-wife had tried to hide assets, forge documents, and turn his children against him. He'd walked into that fight, expecting to lose everything. He'd walked out with full custody and 90% of the marital assets. Catherine Reeves, he'd said, when I called him at 6 a.m. She's not cheap, and she's not nice. But if someone's trying to destroy you through legal manipulation, she's the only person I'd trust. Catherine Reeves operated out of a converted brownstone in River North. No flashy signage, no reception area with leather chairs and legal magazines. Just a narrow staircase leading to a second-floor office where a woman in her early 60s sat behind a desk covered in case files. She didn't stand when I entered, didn't offer her hand, just looked at me with gray eyes that seemed to be taking my measurements for a coffin. "Marcus says you have a family problem," she said. "Sit down, talk fast. I have court in 2 hours." I sat. I talked. I showed her the photographs of my mother's notebook on my phone, scrolling through page after page of documented theft while Catherine's expression remained absolutely unchanged. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment. Then she leaned back in her chair and steepled her fingers. "Your mother is remarkable," she said finally. 8 years of documentation, while pretending to be mentally incompetent. The discipline that takes. A thin smile crossed her face. "I'd like to meet her. Can you help us?" "Help you do what exactly?" She leaned forward. "Get the money back." "Unlikely. It's probably spent." "Prosecute your siblings for fraud?" "Possible, but criminal cases take years and require the DA's cooperation." "Protect your mother from further harm?" "Absolutely. Destroy your brother and sister legally, financially, and socially." Her smile widened. "That's my specialty. What would that look like?" Catherine stood and walked to her window, looking out at the street below. "First, we need to establish that your mother is mentally competent. That means a new medical evaluation. By doctors we choose, not doctors your brother has bribed. Once we have that documentation, we file to have the conservatorship revoked and Constantine removed as your mother's legal guardian. And then your mother, as a legally competent adult, files a civil suit against her children for elder, abuse, fraud, and theft. We use her notebook as evidence. We subpoena bank records. We depose the doctors who falsified her diagnosis." She turned back to face me. "Your brother bribed medical professionals to declare a healthy woman incompetent. In Illinois, that's not just fraud. It's a felony. Multiple felonies, actually. And medical professionals tend to flip quickly when they're facing prison time and loss of license. What about the forged will? The fake loan documents they created? Those become evidence of intent. They weren't just stealing. They were planning to continue stealing after your mother's death and to steal from you as well. That's organized, premeditated fraud. A jury will hate them." Catherine returned to her desk and pulled out a legal pad. "But here's what I need from you, Mr. Volkov. I need you to be patient. I need you to be disciplined. And I need you to keep pretending that nothing has changed. My mother said the same thing. Your mother is a smart woman. The moment your siblings suspect you know the truth, they'll accelerate their timeline. They'll destroy evidence, move money, potentially." She paused. "Potentially. Take steps to ensure your mother can never testify against them." The words hung in the air between us. "You think they might actually hurt her?" "I think people who have committed multiple felonies worth millions of dollars don't like witnesses." Catherine's voice was matter of fact. "Your mother is the only person who can contradict their story. Right now they think she's a vegetable. If they discover she's been documenting their crimes for 8 years, she shrugged. "You tell me what you think they'd do." I thought about Constantine's text. My treat, the smiley face emoji. My brother, who might be planning to kill our mother, sending smiley faces. How do we protect her? First step, we get her out of that facility. Somewhere your brother doesn't know about. Somewhere we control. I have contacts, private care homes that specialize in delicate situations. She made a note on her pad. Second step, we hire private security. Not obvious, not intrusive, just present. Your brother won't try anything. If there are witnesses, he can't control. And third, we build our case quickly. The medical evaluation, the legal filings, the evidence preservation. All of it happens in the next 2 weeks. By the time your siblings realize something is wrong, we'll have your mother's competency restored and protective orders in place. They won't be able to come within 100 feet of her without facing arrest. Catherine quoted her retainer. It was substantial, $25,000 up front, with an estimated total cost of $80,000 to $120,000, depending on how hard my siblings fought. I wrote the check without hesitation. Some things are worth more than money. "One more thing," she said as I stood to leave. "Tomorrow, lunch with your brother. You said he wants to discuss business ideas." "Yes. He's going to ask for money. He always does, from what you've told me." "Give it to him." I stared at her. "Give him money? After everything?" "After everything, yes. Give him whatever he asks for. Smile while you do it. Thank him for being such a supportive brother." Her eyes were cold. "Every dollar you give him now is another dollar we can point to in court. Another example of his pattern of exploitation. Another nail in his coffin." She paused. "Think of it as an investment in his destruction." The steakhouse was the kind of place where businessmen closed deals and expense accounts died. Dark wood, white tablecloths, waiters who materialized silently and disappeared just as fast. Constantine had chosen it, of course. He always chose expensive places when someone else was paying. He was already seated when I arrived, nursing a scotch that probably cost more than most people's hourly wage. He stood when he saw me, arms wide, smile wider. "Vitya," the same diminutive our mother used. Hearing it from his mouth made my stomach turn. "You look good, brother. Business must be treating you well." I embraced him, felt his back under my hands, smelled his cologne, something expensive, probably bought with our mother's money, and I smiled. "Can't complain. How's everything with you?" We sat. He ordered another scotch. I asked for sparkling water. I needed my mind sharp. The waiter brought menus the size of small newspapers. "Things are good. Things are good." Constantine leaned back, expansive, comfortable. "The consulting work is picking up. Got a few irons in the fire. You know how it is." I knew exactly how it was. No clients, no projects, no income except what he stole from our mother and begged from me. "That's great to hear." The words tasted like ash. "Actually, that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about." He leaned forward, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "I've been working on something big. Tech startup. AI-powered real estate valuations. It's going to revolutionize the industry." Of course, another startup, another revolution, another excuse to ask for money. "Sounds interesting," I said. "Tell me more." He talked for 20 minutes. Buzzwords cascading over each other like a verbal avalanche. Machine learning, predictive analytics, market disruption. He had slides on his phone, which he showed me with the enthusiasm of a child presenting a crayon drawing. The slides were clearly made by someone else, probably someone he'd paid with money he didn't have. I nodded in all the right places, asked questions that sounded impressed, watched my brother perform the same dance he'd been performing for 30 years. But now I saw it differently. Before, I'd thought he was an eternal optimist, always chasing the next opportunity, never quite finding success. Now I saw him for what he was, a predator wearing a mask, every smile calculated, every gesture rehearsed, every word designed to separate me from my money. "So here's the thing," he said finally, putting away his phone and fixing me with that earnest look he'd perfected. "We're in the seed round. Early investors are getting in at incredible terms." And I thought, "Well, you've always believed in me, Victor. You've always supported the family. Here it comes. I'm looking for $75,000. For that, you'd get 5% equity. When this thing takes off, and it will, you're looking at a 10 times return. Minimum. $75,000. More than he usually asked for. Was he getting bolder? Or was he sensing that time was running out? That he needed to extract as much as possible before whatever they were planning for our mother? I pretended to consider, frowned slightly, rubbed my chin. "That's a significant investment, Kostya." His smile flickered, just for a moment. I know. But think about it. When have I ever steered you wrong? Family takes care of family, right? That's what Papa always said. Papa. He was invoking our dead father to steal from our living mother's son. The audacity was breathtaking. "You're right," I said slowly. "Family takes care of family." His smile returned, broader than before, victory gleaming in his eyes. "I knew you'd understand. You've always been the reliable one, Victor. The one we can count on. The one we can count on. The one who never questions. The one who just writes checks. I'll have my accountant wire the money tomorrow, I said. But Kostya, let's keep this between us for now. You know how Elena gets about investments. He nodded sagely, man to man, brother to brother. Of course, these things are better handled quietly. No need to involve the wives. He raised his glass. To family. I raised my water. To family. We clinked glasses. The sound was sharp in the quiet restaurant, like something breaking. The rest of lunch passed in a blur of steak and small talk. Constantine was expansive now, relaxed, the tension of the ask behind him. He talked about his condo, about a trip to Miami he was planning, about how Natasha's boys were doing in school. Normal family conversation from a normal brother who wasn't actively plotting to steal everything I had. I listened. I laughed when appropriate. I asked about his health, his social life, whether he was seeing anyone. And underneath it all, I was cataloging, recording, remembering. The way he casually mentioned visiting Mama last week, his voice dripping with false concern. The way he complained about the cost of her care. Care I was paying for, as if it were a burden he nobly bore. The way he never once mentioned the conservatorship, or the lawyers, or the documents he'd forced her to sign. It's hard, you know. He shook his head sadly, playing with his coffee cup, watching her fade like that. Some days I go to visit, and she doesn't even know I'm there. She knows, I thought. She knows everything. It must be difficult, I managed. It is. It really is. But we do what we have to do, right? Family takes care of family. That phrase again, his mantra, his excuse for everything. Speaking of which, I've been handling most of her affairs, the bills, the medical stuff. It's a lot of work, honestly. Maybe we should talk about me taking over more of the financial responsibility. You know, so you don't have to worry about it. There it was. The next step. Not content with stealing from our mother, he wanted direct access to my finances as well. Probably to implement those fake loan documents Catherine had warned me about. That's very thoughtful of you, I said. Let me think about it. Of course, no rush. Just know that I'm here to help. He signaled for the check. Oh, and Natasha wanted me to mention, the twins' summer camp is coming up. Some kind of leadership program in Colorado. Expensive, but supposed to be life-changing. She was hoping maybe you could help out since you're their godfather and all. Always another ask, always another angle. I wondered if there had ever been a conversation with my siblings that wasn't ultimately about extracting money. How much? $12,000 for both boys, but it's an investment in their future, you know? They'll learn so much. $12,000 on top of the $75,000 for his imaginary startup, on top of the $52,000 annual tuition I was already paying, on top of everything else. Tell Natasha I'll take care of it, I said. Konstantin's smile was radiant, victorious. He had no idea he was smiling at his own destruction. You're the best, Victor. Seriously, I don't know what this family would do without you. You're about to find out, I thought. That's what family is for, I said. I called Catherine from my car, still parked outside the restaurant. How did it go? She asked. He asked for $75,000 for a startup and another $12,000 for my nephew's summer camp, and he suggested taking over more of my financial responsibilities regarding our mother. And you agreed to everything. I agreed to everything. Good. Wire the money tomorrow. Keep the records. And Victor? Her voice softened slightly. I know that was hard. Sitting across from someone who's trying to destroy you and pretending everything is fine. Most people can't do it. I kept thinking about my mother. 8 years she sat in that chair, watching them steal from her, and she never broke. She never gave herself away. I stared out the windshield at the Chicago skyline. If she can do 8 years, I can do a few weeks. Speaking of your mother, I've arranged the transfer. Tomorrow night, Maria will help her leave the facility through the service entrance. A private ambulance will take her to a secure location in Oak Park. Your brother won't know she's gone until we want him to. And the medical evaluation, scheduled for Saturday. Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, neurologist at Northwestern, impeccable credentials, absolutely incorruptible. She's reviewed the case files your brother's doctors created. She's interested, let's say. Very interested in examining a patient whose medical records don't match any known pattern of dementia. What happens when she confirms my mother is competent? Then we file to revoke the conservatorship. Emergency motion. Expedited hearing. We have evidence that the original diagnosis was fraudulent. That's grounds for immediate review. If the judge agrees, and they will, your mother regains full control of her affairs within days. Days. After 8 years of imprisonment in her own body, my mother would be free in days. And my brother, my sister. Once the conservatorship is revoked, we file the civil suit. Elder abuse, fraud, theft, conspiracy. We also refer the matter to the state's attorney for criminal investigation. The doctors who falsified your mother's diagnosis will be contacted, separately, without warning, and offered a chance to cooperate before the charges come down. Catherine's voice was cold, precise. In my experience, medical professionals don't like. They'll tell us everything. And then, your brother and sister will face a choice. Fight us in court, where we have 8 years of documented evidence and multiple cooperating witnesses, or negotiate. Most people negotiate. I don't want them to negotiate, I said. I want them to face consequences. Real consequences. Then we'll make sure they do. Catherine paused. Victor, I should warn you. This is going to get ugly. Your siblings will fight. They'll claim your mother is being manipulated. They'll say you've brainwashed her. They'll try to paint you as the villain. Are you prepared for that? I thought about lunch. Constantine's easy smile. His casual invocation of our father's memory. His complete confidence that I would always say yes. Always give him money. Always be the reliable one. They've been treating me like a villain's funding source for 30 years, I said. I think I can handle being called one out loud. Catherine laughed. A short, sharp sound. Good. I'll be in touch tomorrow with the transfer details. In the meantime, act normal. Pay for the summer camp. Wire the startup money. Let your brother think he's won. And after tomorrow night? After tomorrow night, the countdown begins. Your mother disappears from the facility. Your brother panics. And we start dismantling everything he's built on his throne of lies. She hung up. I sat in my car for another 10 minutes, watching people walk by on the sidewalk. Normal people with normal families and normal problems. People who didn't have to smile at the man trying to steal their inheritance while secretly planning his destruction. My phone buzzed. Text from Constantine. Great seeing you today, brother. Thanks again for believing in me. This is going to be huge. Family forever. Family forever. Prayer hands. Flexed muscle. The emoji vocabulary of a man who thought he'd just secured another victim. I typed back, always happy to help. That's what brothers are for. Then I put the phone down, started the car, and drove toward a future where family would mean something very different than it had before. Tomorrow night my mother would escape the prison she'd been held in for 8 years, and my brother had no idea that his own prison was being built around him, one carefully documented brick at a time. The extraction happened at 2:47 a.m. I wasn't supposed to be there. Catherine had been explicit about that. You need to be home in bed with your wife as a witness. If your brother checks, and he will check, you need an alibi. But I couldn't stay away. I parked 3 blocks from the facility, lights off, watching the service entrance through a gap in the privacy hedge. The night was cold for late spring. A mist hung over the street, softening the edges of the streetlights. The neighborhood was silent, the deep, heavy silence of wealth at rest. These were people who didn't worry about midnight emergencies, about family members being smuggled out of care facilities, about the machinery of betrayal grinding toward its conclusion. At 2:45, a white van pulled up to the service entrance. No markings, no lights, except the legally required minimum. It stopped, engine idling, and a woman in scrubs stepped out, one of Catherine's people, a private nurse who specialized in discreet patient transfers, whatever that meant in practice. The service door opened. Maria appeared first, checking both directions. Then the wheelchair, pushed by an orderly I didn't recognize. probably another of Catherine's contacts, inserted into the facility's night staff for exactly this purpose. And in the wheelchair, wrapped in blankets against the night chill, was my mother. From this distance, I couldn't see her face, but I saw her posture, straight, alert, nothing like the slumped figure I'd visited for 3 years. She was watching everything, cataloging the operation, probably already planning her next move. The transfer took less than 90 seconds. Wheelchair to van, Maria climbing in beside her, the orderly returning inside, the door closing behind him, the van pulling away, smooth and unhurried, just another vehicle in the night. I sat in my car and watched them go, watched my mother disappear into the mist, free for the first time in 8 years. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Catherine, using a burner. Package secure. Go home. Sleep. Tomorrow we work. I drove home through empty streets, my hands steady on the wheel, my heart pounding like I'd just committed a crime. In a way, I had. I'd stolen my mother from my brother's control. I'd violated the legal authority he'd fraudulently obtained. It felt like justice. It felt like the beginning of something I couldn't take back. Good. Friday morning, I went to the office as usual, reviewed blueprints, met with clients, answered emails, pretended to be the same Victor Volkov who had existed 3 days ago, before a 3 a.m. phone call had shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. At 10:23 a.m., my phone rang. Constantine. I let it ring twice. Too eager would be suspicious, then answered with a distracted tone. Kostya, what's up? I'm in the middle of something. Victor. His voice was different, tight, controlled. Have you talked to the facility this morning? Lakeview. No. Why would I? You handle Mama's care. A pause. I could almost hear him calculating, deciding how much to reveal. There's been an incident. Mama isn't in her room. I injected the appropriate amount of alarm into my voice. What do you mean she isn't in her room? She can't exactly walk out on her own. I know that, Victor. Sharp now. Defensive. The facility is saying she was transferred. Some kind of medical emergency. They took her to a hospital. Which hospital? That's the thing. They don't know. The paperwork says Northwestern, but Northwestern has no record of her admission. It's like she just disappeared. I let the silence stretch. Let him hear me processing this impossible information. Kostya, that doesn't make sense. Hospitals don't lose patients. Someone has to know where she is. I'm handling it. His voice was clipped now. I just wanted to let you know. Don't call the police or anything. I'm sure it's a mix-up, a paperwork error. I'll figure it out. Don't call the police. Of course he didn't want police involved. Police might ask questions. Police might look at the conservatorship paperwork. Police might discover things Constantine desperately needed to stay hidden. Should I come help? I can clear my schedule. No. Too quick. No, I've got it. Natasha is coming over. We'll sort it out. Just go about your day. I'll call you when I know more. He hung up without saying goodbye. I set the phone down and stared out my office window. Lake Michigan glittered in the distance, indifferent to the small dramas of the people who lived beside it. Constantine was scared. I could hear it in his voice. For 8 years he'd had complete control over our mother, her location, her care, her legal status, her money. And now, suddenly, that control had evaporated. He had no idea where she was, no idea who had taken her, no idea that the walls were closing in. I picked up my phone and sent a text to Catherine. He called. He's panicking. Her reply came 30 seconds later. Good. Let him. Saturday morning. Dr. Patricia Okonkwo's office at Northwestern Medical Center. I arrived at 8 a.m. to find my mother already there, seated in an examination room with Maria at her side. She looked different than she had in the facility. Alert, engaged, dressed in real clothes instead of the shapeless gowns she'd worn for years. Her white hair had been styled. Her eyes were bright. Vitya, she smiled when I entered. You came. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought. She paused. I thought maybe, when it came down to it, you might have doubts. Might wonder if your old mother was really as sharp as she claimed. might think this was all a fantasy of a deteriorating mind. I sat down across from her and took her hands. Mama, I saw your notebook. I saw 8 years of meticulous documentation. I saw evidence that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. I squeezed her fingers. A deteriorating mind couldn't do what you did, couldn't remember what you remembered, couldn't wait the way you waited. She nodded slowly. The waiting was the hardest part, not the pretending. That became almost automatic after the first year. But the waiting, watching them come and go, talking about me like I was furniture, planning their schemes, knowing that every day I didn't act was another day they took something from me. Why did you wait so long? Because I needed enough evidence, because I needed to know everything, every doctor, every transfer, every lie. And because, she looked away, because I needed to be sure about you, about me. Victor, you gave Konstantin money every month. You paid for Natasha's children's school. You designed their house, helped them buy the land. From where I sat, it looked like you might be part of it, like you might know what they were doing and not care, as long as you got to feel generous. The words stung. I didn't know. I swear to you I had no idea. I know that now. I've known it for a while, actually. But I had to be certain. I had to watch you, listen to you, understand who you really were before I trusted you with everything. Her eyes met mine. You're a good man, Vitya. Too good, maybe. You see the best in people, because that's what you are. But now you need to be something else. You need to be hard. You need to be ruthless. Can you do that? Before I could answer, the door opened. Dr. Okonkwo entered. A tall woman with close-cropped gray hair and the kind of focused energy that made you want to sit up straighter. Mrs. Volkov. Mr. Volkov. She shook both our hands. I've reviewed the medical records your brother's doctors created. I've also reviewed the documentation Miss Reeves provided. I have to say, she paused, choosing her words. In 23 years of practice, I've never seen anything quite like this. Anything like what? I asked. Anything like the complete fabrication of a dementia diagnosis over an 8-year period. Dr. Okonkwo sat down, opening a folder on her lap. The records show a progressive decline in cognitive function beginning in 2017. Standard markers, memory loss, confusion, inability to perform daily tasks. But the progression is too smooth, too textbook. Real dementia doesn't follow a template. It's messy, unpredictable, individual. So, the diagnosis was fake. The diagnosis was manufactured. Dr. Okonkwo looked at my mother. Mrs. Volkov, I'm going to conduct a standard cognitive assessment. It will take about 45 minutes. If you're comfortable, your son can stay. My mother smiled. I've been waiting 8 years for this test, doctor. Please, let's begin. The assessment was brutal. Memory tests, logic puzzles, verbal reasoning, mathematical calculations. Dr. Okonkwo moved through each section methodically, her expression revealing nothing. My mother answered everything, quickly, accurately, sometimes with a hint of impatience at the simplicity of the questions. Name the current president of the United States. Would you like me to name the vice president as well? The Speaker of the House. I have quite a lot of time to read the news, doctor. Count backward from 100 by sevens. 93, 86, 79, 72. My mother rattled off the sequence without hesitation. Shall I continue into negative numbers? I'll read you a list of 15 words. After I'm done, tell me as many as you can remember. My mother repeated all 15. In order, then backward, just to show she could. By the end of the assessment, Dr. Okonkwo was shaking her head slowly, not in disappointment, but in something like wonder. Mrs. Volkov, your cognitive function is not just normal, it's exceptional. You scored in the 95th percentile for your age group on virtually every metric. She closed her folder. There is absolutely no indication of dementia, mild cognitive impairment, or any other neurological decline. Can you put that in writing? I asked. I'll do more than that. Dr. Okonkwo's expression hardened. I'm going to document exactly what was done here. A healthy woman was falsely diagnosed with dementia, stripped of her legal rights, and held in a care facility for years. That's not just malpractice. It's criminal fraud. The doctors who signed off on those diagnoses should face prosecution. We're already working on that, I said. Good. Dr. Okonkwo stood. I'll have my full report ready by Monday. It will state unequivocally that your mother is mentally competent and that the previous diagnoses were medically unjustifiable. That should be sufficient for your court filings. She shook my mother's hand, then mine, and left. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then my mother reached out and touched my arm. It's real now, she said softly. Everything I documented, everything I remembered. Now there's proof, official proof that they lied, that I was never sick. You were never sick, I repeated. You were a prisoner. Yes, her voice was quiet. A prisoner in my own body, in my own family. But now, she looked up at me, and for the first time I saw tears in her eyes. Not tears of sadness, tears of relief, of freedom, of 8 years of silence, finally ending. Now we fight, I said. Now we fight. That evening, my phone exploded. 17 missed calls from Constantine, 8 from Natasha, 3 voicemails, each more frantic than the last. The first voicemail. Victor, call me back. The facility is saying Mama was discharged. Discharged to whom? No one told me anything. Call me. The second. Where is she, Victor? I've called every hospital in Chicago. No one has her. This is insane. If you know something, you need to tell me. She's my responsibility. The third. Victor. His voice was different now. Cold. Suspicious. Someone took Mama. Someone who knew the facility's procedures, who knew when the night staff changed. Someone with resources. If I find out you had anything to do with this. A long pause. Call me back, now. I listened to the voicemails twice. Then I called him back. Victor, he answered before the first ring finished. Where have you been? I've been calling all day. I was in meetings. What's going on? Mama is gone. Someone took her from the facility. The staff doesn't know anything. The paperwork is forged, and she's just gone. I let the silence stretch. That's impossible. How could someone just take her? I don't know. His composure cracked. I don't know how. I don't know who. I don't know anything. The facility is threatening to call the police, and I've been trying to talk them out of it. Why would you talk them out of calling the police? A pause. Too long. I think this is a family matter. We should handle it ourselves. Kostya, our mother has been kidnapped, possibly, and you don't want to involve the police. She wasn't kidnapped. She was... He struggled for words. Look, just come to my place. Natasha and Gregory are here. We need to figure this out as a family. As a family. The same family that had been stealing from our mother for 8 years. The same family that had forged documents, bribed doctors, and was planning to let her die so they could accelerate their inheritance. I'll be there in an hour, I said. I hung up and called Catherine. He wants a family meeting, I told her. Tonight, at his place. Good. Go. Listen. Don't reveal anything. They're going to try to figure out what happened, and they're going to be watching you closely for any sign that you're involved. What if they accuse me directly? Deny everything. You're a concerned son who has no idea what happened to his mother. You're shocked, you're worried, you want answers. Let them see exactly what they expect to see. The same Victor who's been writing checks for 30 years without asking questions. And if they suggest calling the police, encourage it. I could hear her smile through the phone. They won't do it. They can't risk the scrutiny. But you suggesting it makes you look innocent. The worried brother who wants to do everything by the book. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Victor? Catherine's voice stopped me. Remember, you're not just gathering information tonight. You're watching them unravel. Enjoy it. Constantine's condo was in the Gold Coast. $1.2 million of floor-to-ceiling windows and designer furniture, all paid for with money stolen from our mother. I'd never thought about it that way before. I'd assumed he'd made some good investments, gotten lucky somewhere along the line. Now I saw every piece of furniture as a theft, every expensive fixture as evidence. They were waiting in the living room, Constantine pacing by the window, Natasha on the couch, her husband Gregory beside her. both looking shell-shocked. When I entered, all eyes turned to me, searching, assessing, suspicious. "Victor!" Constantine crossed to me, gripped my shoulders. "Thank God. We need to figure out what happened." "Has anyone called the hospitals again?" I asked, playing my role. Maybe she was admitted under a different name. "We've called everyone." Natasha's voice was strained. "No one has her. It's like she vanished." "Then we should call the police," I said. "This is a missing person, an elderly woman with dementia. They have resources." "No," Constantine's voice was sharp. "No police!" "Not yet." "Why not?" He exchanged a glance with Natasha. Some silent communication passed between them. "Because," he ran a hand through his hair, "because this might be more complicated than a simple disappearance. Someone who knew the facility's systems took her. Someone with access, with planning. This wasn't random. Who would want to take Mama?" I made my voice confused, innocent. "She doesn't have enemies. She doesn't even know where she is half the time." Another glance between Constantine and Natasha. This time, I caught something else in their expressions. Fear. Real fear. They were afraid our mother might talk. Gregory spoke for the first time. "What if it's someone who's investigating? A journalist maybe, or a lawyer." "Investigating what?" I asked. Silence. Gregory looked at his wife. Natasha looked at Constantine. No one answered. "What would anyone be investigating?" I pressed. "Mama's care has been handled properly. Constantine is her conservator. Everything is legal, documented." "Of course it is." Constantine's voice was too quick. "Of course. I'm just saying. There are people who look for elderly victims, who take them from facilities, confuse them, get them to sign things. It's elder abuse. Elder abuse." The audacity was breathtaking. "Then we definitely need to call the police," I said. "Victor." "No, Kostya. Listen to yourself. You're describing a crime, elder abuse, kidnapping, and you're saying we shouldn't involve authorities? That makes no sense. Unless—" I paused, letting the implication hang. "Unless there's something you're not telling me." Constantine's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, calculation, a flash of something that might have been guilt. "There's nothing," he said finally. "I'm just trying to protect the family. Keep this quiet until we understand what's happening." "Fine." I held up my hands in surrender. "Fine. You're the conservator. You make the calls. But if Mama is in danger, real danger, every hour we wait is an hour we're failing her." The words landed exactly as I'd intended, a reminder of his legal responsibility, a subtle accusation buried in concern. Constantine nodded slowly. I know. Let me make some more calls. I have contacts, people who can look into this quietly. We'll find her." I stayed for another hour, watched them strategize, panic, reassure each other that everything would be fine, watched the cracks forming in their confidence, the suspicion seeping in. By the time I left, the seeds of paranoia were firmly planted. They didn't know where our mother was. They didn't know who had taken her. They didn't know if she could talk, what she might say, who she might say it to, and in 2 days, they would find out. The court filing was scheduled for Monday morning. Monday, 9:07 a.m., Cook County Circuit Court. Catherine filed the emergency motion at exactly 9:00 a.m., the moment the clerk's office opened. By 9:07, notice had been sent to all parties, including Constantine, as the current conservator, and Bernard Frost, the attorney who had been helping him execute his scheme. The motion was 53 pages long. It included Dr. Okonkwo's assessment. It included photographs of my mother's notebook, all 247 pages of meticulous documentation. It included bank records, transfer receipts, and a forensic accounting analysis showing $2,053 million systematically drained from my mother's accounts over 8 years. It was a bomb, delivered by courier to my brother's doorstep at 9:15 a.m. I was in my office when my phone rang. 9:23 a.m. Constantine. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Victor. His voice was different, strangled, like someone had their hands around his throat. "What did you do?" "Good morning, Kostya." "What do you mean?" "Don't!" The word came out as a hiss. Don't play games with me. I just received a court filing, an emergency motion to revoke my conservatorship, filed by our mother. A pause. Our mother who supposedly has dementia. Our mother who can't remember her own name. That's strange, I said. How could someone with dementia file a legal motion? You know exactly how. His breathing was rapid now, panicked. You took her. You've been planning this. The lunch, the money. You were playing me the whole time. I don't know what you're talking about, brother. I kept my voice calm, pleasant even. But if Mama filed a legal motion, that would suggest she's, well, competent to do so. Wouldn't it? Silence. I could almost hear him recalculating, trying to figure out how much I knew, how much evidence existed, how deep the hole he'd dug had become. Victor. His voice changed again, softer now, the manipulation shifting gears. Victor, listen to me. Whatever you think you know, whatever she's told you, she's not well, she's confused. She doesn't understand what's happening. People are taking advantage of her. Are they? Yes. Think about it. Someone convinced an 82-year-old woman with dementia to file legal papers against her own son. That's elder abuse, Victor. That's exactly what I was trying to protect her from. The audacity was breathtaking. He was still trying to spin it, still trying to make himself the hero. The filing includes a cognitive assessment, I said quietly, from Dr. Patricia Okonkwo at Northwestern. Mama scored in the 95th percentile. No dementia, no cognitive impairment. Nothing wrong with her at all. The silence stretched for 5 seconds. 10, 15. That's not possible. His voice had gone hollow. The other doctors lied. For money. Your money. Which was actually Mama's money. I let that sink in. She documented everything, Kostya. 8 years of documentation. Every transfer, every lie, every conversation you had in front of her thinking she couldn't understand. She understood everything. She wrote it all down. Victor, $253 million. That's how much you and Natasha stole from her, from our mother, from the woman who raised us. My voice was steady, cold. Did you really think you'd get away with it forever? I can explain. You can explain to the judge. The hearing is Thursday at 2 p.m. I hung up. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from something else. Release. Satisfaction. The feeling of finally, speaking the truth after decades of swallowing lies. My phone rang again immediately. Constantine. I declined the call. It rang again and again. Then texts started flooding in. Victor, please, call me back. We need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding. I can explain everything. Don't destroy our family over money. Please. Victor, I'm begging you. Call me. I read each message without responding. Then I silenced my phone and went back to work. Let him beg. Natasha called at noon. I'd expected anger. I got tears. Victor, it's Natasha. Her voice was thick with crying. Kostya told me what's happening. How could you do this to us? We're family. Family doesn't steal $2 million from their mother, Natasha. That's not. We didn't. She struggled to form coherent denials. It wasn't like that. Mama wanted to help us. She was happy to share her money with her children. You were always too proud to take anything, but we needed it. The boys' schools, the house repairs, Gregory's business. I paid for the boys' schools, Natasha. I paid their tuition, $52,000 a year. And I designed your house and helped you buy the land. I let that sink in. So where did Mama's money actually go? Silence. It's complicated. No, Natasha. It's very simple. You and Constantine forged medical documents, bribed doctors, obtained a conservatorship through fraud, and systematically drained our mother's accounts while she was fully aware of everything happening around her. My voice hardened. She was a prisoner, watching you steal from her, and you didn't even have the decency to do it out of earshot. Victor, please, think about the boys. Think about what this will do to our family. If this goes public, people will know what you did. Is that what you're worried about? Not that you stole from Mama, but that people might find out. The boys don't deserve to have their mother dragged through court. Their grandmother accusing. Their grandmother is the victim here. You made that choice, Natasha. Not me, not Mama. You! She was crying harder now. We can fix this. We can pay back the money, work out a plan. Just don't do this. Don't destroy everything over what? Over our mother's life savings, over 8 years of imprisonment, over a forged will designed to steal my inheritance. I paused. Yes, I know about that too. The will, the fake loan documents, everything you and Kostya were planning to do after Mama died. Dead silence. Not even crying now. How? I told you. She documented everything, every conversation, every scheme, every single lie. I stood and walked to my window, looking out at the city. The hearing is Thursday. I suggest you get a lawyer. A good one. You're going to need it. I hung up and blocked her number. Tuesday, day 2 of the countdown. Catherine called at 8 a.m. We've had some interesting developments. Good interesting or bad interesting? Depends on your perspective. Dr. Hendricks, the first neurologist who diagnosed your mother, contacted my office this morning. He wants to cooperate. I sat up straighter. Already, he's terrified. The moment he saw the court filing, he called his own lawyer. His lawyer told him he was facing potential criminal charges for falsifying medical documents. So Dr. Hendricks did the math and decided his career was worth more than his loyalty to your brother. What is he offering? Full testimony, documentation of payments from Konstantin, $15,000 over 3 years. Records of the consultations, where Konstantin told him exactly what diagnosis to write. Catherine's voice was satisfied. He's also willing to testify that he knew your mother was competent. He examined her, Victor. He looked into her eyes, asked her questions, and watched her answer correctly. Then he wrote a report saying she had advanced dementia. He knew, and he did it anyway because your brother paid him to. A pause. The other 3 doctors are being contacted today. I expect at least 2 more to flip by Wednesday. No one wants to be the last one holding the bag when the criminal referrals start. What about Konstantin's lawyer? Bernard Frost. Frost is a different story. He's not cooperating yet, but he's also withdrawn from representing your brother. Filed a motion this morning citing irreconcilable differences. He knows what's coming, and he's trying to distance himself before the ship goes down completely. Konstantin's lawyer had abandoned him. His co-conspirators were turning on each other. The carefully constructed house of lies was collapsing, brick by brick. What about the criminal referral? I asked. Filed yesterday with the Cook County State's attorney. Elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy, falsification of legal documents. They've assigned an investigator. Your mother will need to give a statement, but with Dr. Hendricks cooperating, and the documentation she compiled. Catherine paused. Victor, I've been doing this for 25 years. This is one of the strongest cases I've ever seen. Your mother didn't just document her abuse, she built a prosecution. 8 years, I said, quietly. She spent 8 years building it, and now it's going to bury them. That evening, I visited my mother at the safe house in Oak Park. It was a quiet, residential street, the kind of neighborhood where people walked their dogs and waved to their neighbors. The house itself was unremarkable, a 2-story Victorian, well-maintained, with a private nurse on duty 24/7 and security cameras Catherine's team had installed. My mother was in the sitting room when I arrived, reading a newspaper, actually reading it, not staring blankly at pages she couldn't comprehend. She looked up when I entered and smiled. Vitya, I heard about the phone calls. Catherine told you. She tells me everything. I may be hiding, but I'm not uninformed. She set down the paper. How did it feel, talking to them? I sat down across from her. Strange. For 30 years, I believed them. Believed Konstantin was just unlucky, just needed more time, more support. Believed Natasha was struggling and needed help. And then, suddenly, I could hear it. Every lie, every manipulation. It was like learning a new language, or finally understanding one I'd been hearing my whole life. My mother nodded slowly. That's how I felt when it first started. When Konstantin brought that first doctor, when they started talking about me like I wasn't there, I kept thinking, this is my son. He wouldn't do this. There must be some mistake. Her eyes grew distant. It took me almost a year to accept that there was no mistake, that my children had chosen to see me as a resource rather than a person. How did you survive it? 8 years of pretending. The notebook, she smiled slightly. Every entry was an act of resistance. Every page was proof that I still existed, still thought, still remembered. They wanted to erase me, Victor, turn me into a shell they could control. The notebook was my way of saying no, my way of staying myself. Dr. Hendricks is cooperating. He's going to testify about the bribes, about knowing you were competent. Her expression hardened. Good. He sat in my room, asked me questions, watched me answer correctly, and then he wrote lies. For money, for $15,000, he helped steal 8 years of my life. She paused. I hope he loses everything. He probably will. Catherine says the medical board will revoke his license. Good, she said again. Then her face softened. But Victor, what about you? When this is over, when Konstantin and Natasha face the consequences, you'll have no siblings left. No family except me, and I'm 82 years old. I won't be here forever. I reached out and took her hand. I have Elena, I have my work, and I have you, the real you, not the shadow I've been visiting for 3 years. I squeezed her fingers. That's enough, Mama. That's more than enough. And what about forgiveness? Will you ever be able to forgive them? I thought about the question, really thought about it. I don't know, I said finally. Right now I'm not interested in forgiveness. I'm interested in justice, in protecting you, in making sure they can never do this to anyone else. I met her eyes. Maybe someday when this is all over, I'll be able to think about forgiveness. But not today, not yet. My mother nodded. That's honest. I can live with honest. Wednesday night, less than 18 hours until the hearing. I was home, reviewing documents with Elena. I'd finally told her everything, watched her face cycle through shock, anger, and finally cold determination. When my phone rang, unknown number, I answered cautiously. Hello? Mr. Volkov, a man's voice. Unfamiliar. My name is James Hartley. I'm Konstantin Volkov's new attorney. New attorney. He'd found someone willing to take the case. What can I do for you, Mr. Hartley? My client would like to discuss a resolution before tomorrow's hearing. He believes there may be room for a mutually beneficial arrangement, a settlement, a family resolution. No courts, no publicity, no criminal referrals. Your mother regains her independence. Your brother steps back from any involvement in her care. Everyone walks away. And the money, the $253 million he stole. A pause. My client acknowledges that certain transfers occurred that may not have been in your mother's best interest. He's prepared to make restitution, a substantial payment to demonstrate good faith. How substantial? $400,000, payable over 5 years. $400,000 out of $253 million, less than 20%. And spread over 5 years, which meant Konstantin would probably default after the first few payments and claim hardship. That's not acceptable. Mr. Volkov, I understand emotions are running high, but consider the alternative. A protracted legal battle, family secrets exposed in court, your mother's name in the newspapers, your nephews learning their mother might go to prison. Hartley's voice was smooth, practiced. Is that really what you want? What I want is justice. What I want is for my brother and sister to face consequences for what they did. And what I want is for my mother to receive every dollar that was stolen from her. That's not realistic. Then we'll let the court decide what's realistic. Thank you for calling, Mr. Hartley. I'll see your client tomorrow. I hung up. Elena was watching me from across the room. They tried to buy you off. $400,000. As if that makes up for 8 years of hell. What did you say? I said no. I set down the phone. I said no. And tomorrow I'm going to walk into that courtroom and watch everything they built come crashing down. Elena crossed to me, put her hands on my shoulders. I'm proud of you, Victor. I know this isn't easy. It's not easy, I admitted. They're my brother and sister. Part of me still remembers growing up with them. Birthday parties, family dinners, holidays. I shook my head. But those memories are lies now, contaminated by what they became, what they did. I can't separate the children I knew from the adults who robbed our mother. You don't have to separate them. You just have to choose what matters more, the past or the truth. I pulled her close. The truth, always the truth. Outside, the Chicago night was cold and clear. Somewhere across the city, my brother was probably pacing his expensive condo, calculating his odds, planning his next move. He had no moves left. Tomorrow, the truth would finally have its day. Thursday, 1:47 p.m., Cook County Circuit Court, room 1804. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights, rows of bench seating that reminded me of a church without the stained glass. The American flag hung limply beside the judge's bench. The seal of Illinois watched from above, impassive. I sat in the front row behind Catherine's table. Elena was beside me, her hand in mine. We'd been here since 1:30, watching the previous case wrap up. A routine guardianship matter that had nothing to do with stolen millions or 8 years of imprisonment. My mother sat at Catherine's table, straight-backed, dressed in a navy blue suit we'd bought her 2 days ago. Her white hair was pinned back elegantly. Her hands were folded on the table in front of her. She looked exactly like what she was. A sharp, competent woman who had been wrongly imprisoned and was finally free to tell her story. Across the aisle, Constantine sat with his new lawyer, James Hartley. My brother looked like he hadn't slept in days. His suit was rumpled, his face was pale. He kept glancing at our mother, then looking away, like he couldn't quite believe she was really there, really awake, really aware, really about to destroy him. Natasha sat behind him with Gregory. She'd been crying. Her makeup was smeared, her eyes red. Gregory just looked stunned, like a man who'd bet everything on a horse and watched it collapse at the starting gate. The bailiff called the room to order. All rise for the Honorable Margaret Chen. Judge Chen entered through a side door. She was in her 60s, silver-haired, with reading glasses perched on her nose and an expression that suggested she'd seen every possible permutation of human dysfunction and was no longer surprised by any of it. "Be seated." She settled into her chair, opened a thick folder. "This is the matter of Irina Volkov, petitioner, versus Konstantin Volkov, respondent, regarding the emergency motion to terminate conservatorship." She looked up. "Counsel, state your appearances." "Catherine Reeves for the petitioner, Your Honor. James Hartley for the respondent." Judge Chen nodded. "I've reviewed the filings. All of them." She looked at Konstantin over her glasses. "Mr. Volkov, I want to be clear from the outset. The allegations in this petition are extremely serious. If proven, they constitute multiple felonies under Illinois law. Do you understand that?" Konstantin stood. His voice was hoarse. "Your Honor, a yes or no will suffice, Mr. Volkov." "Yes, Your Honor." "Good. Sit down." She turned to Catherine. "Ms. Reeves, the central question before me is whether Mrs. Volkov is mentally competent to manage her own affairs. Your filing includes a cognitive assessment from Dr. Patricia Okonkwo. Is Dr. Okonkwo available to testify?" "She is, Your Honor. She's waiting in the hallway." "Call her." "Doctor." Okonkwo's testimony was methodical, devastating, and utterly unimpeachable. She walked the court through her assessment, the memory tests my mother had aced, the logic puzzles she'd solved without hesitation, the verbal reasoning that placed her in the top 5% for her age group. She explained what real dementia looked like, the inconsistency, the confusion, the gradual erosion of self, and how none of those markers were present in Irina Volkov. "In my professional opinion," Dr. Okonkwo concluded, "Mrs. Volkov shows no signs of dementia or cognitive impairment. Her mental faculties are fully intact. She is completely capable of managing her own affairs." "And the previous diagnoses?" Catherine asked. "The medical records from Dr. Hendricks and the other physicians?" "Inconsistent with any recognized pattern of neurodegenerative disease. The progression described in those records doesn't match how dementia actually develops. It appears. Dr. Okonkwo paused, choosing her words carefully. It appears to have been manufactured to fit a predetermined conclusion. Hartley stood for cross-examination. He tried to challenge Dr. Okonkwo's methodology, her credentials, her conclusions. She answered each question with calm precision, citing studies, statistics, diagnostic criteria. By the end, even Hartley seemed to realize he was making things worse. "No further questions," he said quietly, and sat down. Judge Chen made a note. "Ms. Reeves, do you have additional witnesses?" "Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call Dr. Michael Hendricks." Constantine's head snapped up. Across the aisle, I saw his face drain of color. Dr. Hendricks entered the courtroom, looking like a man walking to his own execution. He was younger than I'd expected, late 40s, professionally dressed, but with the hollow eyes of someone who hadn't slept in days. He took the oath in a voice barely above a whisper. "Dr. Hendricks," Catherine began, "you were the primary physician who diagnosed Irina Volkov with dementia in 2017. Is that correct?" "Yes. And you continued to provide assessments of her condition over the following years?" "Yes." "Dr. Hendricks, I'm going to ask you directly. Was Irina Volkov suffering from dementia when you diagnosed her?" Silence. Dr. Hendricks stared at his hands. The courtroom waited. "No," he said finally. The word fell into the silence like a stone into still water. "Can you repeat that for the record?" "No. She was not suffering from dementia." He looked up, and I saw tears in his eyes. I knew she was competent when I examined her. She answered my questions correctly. She was alert, oriented, fully aware of her surroundings. But I wrote the diagnosis anyway. Why? Because Konstantin Volkov paid me to. The courtroom erupted. Judge Chen banged her gavel. Behind me, I heard Natasha sob. Konstantin was on his feet, shouting something at his lawyer. Hartley was trying to object, but his voice was lost in the chaos. "Order!" Judge Chen's voice cut through the noise. "I will have order in this courtroom, or I will clear it. Mr. Volkov, sit down immediately." Konstantin sat. His face was the color of ash. Catherine continued, her voice steady. "Dr. Hendricks, please describe the arrangement you had with Konstantin Volkov." And he did, in painful detail. The initial approach, $5,000 for the first diagnosis, with a promise of more. The follow-up payments, $15,000, total over 3 years. The specific instructions Konstantin had given about what the reports should say, how the progression should be documented. The other doctors who had been brought in, each paid to confirm what Dr. Hendricks had started. I knew it was wrong, Dr. Hendricks said, his voice breaking. I knew I was helping them steal from her, control her, take everything she had. But I told myself she was old. She wouldn't know the difference. It wouldn't really hurt her. He looked at my mother for the first time. I was wrong. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." My mother's expression didn't change. She simply looked at him, this man who had helped steal 8 years of her life, with the cold, measuring gaze of someone cataloging evidence. Judge Chen leaned forward. "Dr. Hendricks, are you aware that you've just confessed to multiple felonies in open court?" "Yes, Your Honor. And you're testifying voluntarily. No one has coerced you." "I'm testifying because I can't live with what I did anymore. And because," he swallowed, "because Mrs. Volkov deserves the truth. After everything she went through, she deserves to have someone tell the truth." The final witness was my mother. She rose from her chair and walked to the witness stand with the careful dignity of a woman who had waited 8 years for this moment. She placed her hand on the Bible, took the oath, and settled into the chair with her back straight and her eyes clear. "Mrs. Volkov," Catherine began, "can you describe what happened to you beginning in 2017? My mother looked at the judge, then at Konstantin, then at the courtroom at large. "In 2017, she said, her voice clear and steady, "my son Konstantin brought a doctor to see me. He said it was just a checkup. The doctor asked me questions, and I answered them correctly. I remember being almost amused at how simple they were. But afterward, I saw Konstantin hand the doctor an envelope, and a few weeks later, I received a letter saying I had been diagnosed with early-onset dementia. What did you do? At first, I was confused. I knew there was nothing wrong with my mind. I thought it must be a mistake. But when I tried to question the diagnosis, Constantine told me I was having one of my episodes, that I didn't remember the appointment correctly, that I was confused. She paused. That was when I realized what was happening. My son was gaslighting me, trying to make me doubt my own sanity. Why didn't you fight back then? Because I had no proof. It was my word against a doctor's diagnosis and my son's concern. Who would believe an old woman with dementia over medical professionals? Her voice hardened, so I decided to wait, to watch, to document everything until I had so much evidence that no one could dismiss me as confused. And the notebook. I started writing the first week. Every conversation I overheard, every transfer I discovered, every lie they told in front of me, thinking I couldn't understand. My mother's eyes found Constantine. They would sit in my room and discuss their plans like I was furniture. How much money to move, how to hide it from the accountants, how to keep Victor distracted so he wouldn't ask questions. They discussed this in front of you, regularly. They thought I was gone, a vegetable in a wheelchair staring at nothing. They had no idea I was writing down every word. She looked at the judge. 8 years, Your Honor. 8 years I sat in that chair and documented my children stealing my life savings. 8 years of watching them visit me with fake concern, pat my hand, tell the nurses what good children they were, and then go back to draining my accounts. Judge Chen's expression was unreadable. Mrs. Volkov, the records indicate that over $2 million was transferred from your accounts during this period. Can you identify where that money went? I can identify every dollar. My mother reached into the folder in front of her and pulled out a sheaf of papers. $847,000 to my son Constantine, transferred to various accounts and shell companies he created. $612,000 to my daughter, Natasha, and her husband, Gregory, supposedly for house repairs, education funds, and business investments that never existed. The rest went to paying off the doctors, the lawyers, and the care facility administrators who helped maintain the fiction that I was incompetent. She set the papers down and looked directly at Constantine. You took everything your father left me, everything he worked 40 years to save. You took it and you spent it, and you never once stopped to think about what you were doing to your own mother. Her voice didn't waver. I want you to know that I heard every word. I understood every betrayal, and I will never, ever forgive you. Constantine was crying now, silently, tears streaming down his face. Natasha had her head in her hands. Gregory stared at the floor like he wished it would open and swallow him. Mrs. Volkov, Judge Chen said quietly, is there anything else you want to tell the court? My mother turned to face her. Yes, Your Honor. I want to say that I'm grateful. Grateful to my son Victor, who believed me when I finally told him the truth. Grateful to my caregiver Maria, who helped me survive those 8 years. Grateful to the lawyers and doctors who are helping me now. She paused. And I want to say that I'm tired. Not confused, not demented, just tired. I've spent 8 years fighting to be seen as a person. I would like to spend whatever time I have left living as one. The courtroom was silent. Even the court reporter had stopped typing. Judge Chen removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. Thank you, Mrs. Volkov. You may step down. Judge Chen took a 15-minute recess. When she returned, her expression was stone. I've heard sufficient evidence to make my ruling, she said. The petition to terminate conservatorship is granted. Effective immediately, Irina Volkov is restored to full legal competency. Konstantin Volkov is removed as conservator and barred from any involvement in his mother's affairs. She turned to Constantine. Mr. Volkov, what I've heard today is among the most disturbing testimony I've encountered in 23 years on the bench. You didn't just steal from your mother, you erased her. You took a competent, intelligent woman and convinced the world she was gone so you could take everything she had. Her voice was ice. I'm referring this matter to the Cook County State's Attorney for criminal prosecution. I'm also ordering a full forensic accounting of all assets transferred from Mrs. Volkov's accounts during the conservatorship period. Your Honor, Hartley started to rise. I'm not finished. Judge Chen's gaze didn't waver. I'm also issuing a temporary restraining order. Konstantin Volkov and Natasha Petrov are prohibited from contacting Irina Volkov in any way. No phone calls, no visits, no communication through third parties. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. She gathered her papers. Mrs. Volkov, I'm sorry for what you endured. The system that was supposed to protect you failed you, and I hope that what happens next will be some measure of justice. She looked at Konstantin one final time. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell. I stood and embraced my mother. She was trembling, not from weakness but from release. 8 years of silence, of pretending, of waiting. It was over. Mama, I whispered. You did it. We did it. She corrected. Her voice was thick. I couldn't have done this without you, Vitya. Without you believing me. Behind us, Konstantin was being led out by his lawyer. He paused at the door and looked back, not at me, but at our mother. His face was a mask of devastation. For just a moment, I saw the brother I remembered, the boy who used to build snow forts with me, the teenager who taught me to drive. Then the moment passed, and I saw him for what he really was. A thief, a liar, a man who had stolen 8 years of his mother's life for money. He turned and walked out of the courtroom. I didn't watch him go. Outside the courthouse, the afternoon sun was bright. Chicago in late spring, the kind of day that made you believe in new beginnings. Catherine joined us on the steps. That went as well as we could have hoped. Better, actually. Judge Chen's referral to the state's attorney carries weight. They'll take this seriously. What happens now? Elena asked. Criminal investigation, forensic accounting. Eventually, arrests. Catherine looked at my mother. Mrs. Volkov, you'll need to give a formal statement to the investigators. Maria, too. And we'll proceed with the civil suit. That's how we recover whatever assets can still be recovered. How much can we expect to get back? I asked. Honestly, not much. The money has been spent. Cars, condos, vacations, failed business ventures. But we can go after their current assets. Konstantin's condo, Natasha's house, whatever they have in savings. It won't be $2 million, but it won't be nothing either. My mother shook her head slowly. It was never about the money. Not really. It was about being heard, being believed, being seen as a person instead of a problem to be managed. She looked at me. That's what I have now. That's worth more than any amount they could pay back. I put my arm around her shoulders. Let's go home, Mama. Home, she repeated. I haven't had a home in 8 years. You do now, for as long as you want. We walked down the courthouse steps together. My mother, my wife, and me. 3 people who had survived something terrible and come out the other side. Behind us, the courthouse doors closed on everything we were leaving behind. Ahead of us, whatever came next, we would face it together. The week after the hearing was chaos in slow motion. My mother moved into our guest room, the one Elena had always intended for visiting family, never imagining it would house a refugee from that same family. We converted the small office adjacent to it into a sitting area where she could read, watch the news, and slowly reacquaint herself with the world she'd been locked away from for 8 years. Maria came by every other day, no longer as a caregiver, but as a friend. The 2 of them would sit on the back patio for hours, drinking tea and talking in quiet voices. Sometimes I'd hear my mother laugh, a sound I'd forgotten existed, a sound I'd been told would never return. The lies we believe about the people we love, the lies they let us believe. Meanwhile, the investigation accelerated. Catherine called on Monday with an update. The state's attorney has assigned a dedicated prosecutor. Her name is Diana Walsh. She specializes in elder abuse cases, and she's good. Very good. I could hear papers shuffling. She's already subpoenaed bank records from every institution your brother used. The forensic accountants are tracing the money now. What about the other doctors, the ones besides Hendricks? 2 more have agreed to cooperate. Dr. Samantha Pierce and Dr. Robert Huang. They've both provided written statements confirming they were paid to falsify evaluations. The 4th doctor, Dr. Wallace, has retained counsel and is refusing to comment. Will that matter? Not really. With 3 doctors testifying and your mother's documentation, the case against Konstantin is overwhelming. Dr. Wallace can refuse to cooperate, but he can't make the evidence disappear. She paused. There's something else you should know. What? Natasha is trying to cut a deal. I sat down heavily. A deal? Through her lawyer. She's claiming she was coerced by Konstantin, that she didn't understand the full scope of what was happening, that she was just following her brother's lead. Catherine's voice was dry. It's a common defense strategy. I'm not the mastermind, I'm just the victim who got swept up. Is it going to work? Unlikely. Your mother's notebook is very clear that Natasha was an active participant. She wasn't just receiving money. She was in the room when they discussed the conservatorship strategy, when they planned the forged will, when they calculated how to squeeze more from your mother's accounts. I heard Catherine turn a page. But she might get a reduced sentence if she testifies against Konstantin. That's probably what she's angling for. My sister, trying to save herself by throwing our brother under the bus. After everything they'd done together. After years of partnership in theft and lies. Let me guess, I said. Konstantin isn't happy about this. His lawyer filed a motion this morning accusing Natasha of attempting to suborn perjury. He's claiming she was actually the ringleader, that he was just managing the accounts the way she directed. Catherine laughed. A short, sharp sound. They're eating each other alive, Victor. Which is exactly what we wanted. Tuesday afternoon, I was in my office at Volkov Architecture, trying to focus on a project bid, when my assistant knocked. Mr. Volkov, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent. Personal. Who is it? Gregory Petrov. He says he's your brother-in-law. Gregory, Natasha's husband, the real estate developer who never developed anything. The man who'd been living in the house I designed, on land I'd helped them buy, funded by money stolen from my mother. Send him in. Gregory entered looking like a man who'd aged 10 years in a week. His suit was expensive, probably paid for with stolen money, but it hung on him wrong, like he'd lost weight rapidly. His eyes were bloodshot. His hands trembled slightly as he sat in the chair across from my desk. Victor, he swallowed. Thank you for seeing me. What do you want, Gregory? I want, he stopped, started again. I want you to know that I didn't know. In the beginning, when Natasha first started talking about her mother's money, about how Konstantin was managing things, I didn't understand what was really happening. And later, when you did understand, he looked at his hands. I told myself it was family business, that it wasn't my place to interfere, that Natasha knew what she was doing. His voice cracked. I was a coward, Victor. I knew something was wrong, and I looked the other way because the money kept coming. The money from my mother, the woman you visited once a month, patting her hand, calling her Mama, while you helped spend her life savings. Yes, he met my eyes. Yes, I'm not going to make excuses. I did that. I was part of it, even if I wasn't the one making decisions. I benefited from what they did to her. So, why are you here? Gregory leaned forward. Because Natasha is about to destroy what's left of our family. She's going to testify against Konstantin, lie about her own involvement to get a lighter sentence. And Konstantin is going to retaliate by revealing things about her that... He stopped. Things that could hurt the boys. What things? Things about where the money really went. Things about other men. Things that have nothing to do with your mother, but everything to do with our marriage. His voice was bitter. This is going to become a bloodbath, Victor. They're going to tear each other apart, and the boys are going to be caught in the middle. And you want me to, what, intervene? Call off the prosecution? No, he shook his head. No, I know that's not going to happen. And, honestly, it shouldn't. What they did to your mother was evil. I see that now. He took a breath. I'm here because I want to make a deal with you. Not with the lawyers, not with the prosecutors. With you. I'm listening. The house. The one you designed for us, on the land you helped us buy. It's worth about $1.8 million now. I'll sign it over to your mother. All of it. No conditions, no delays. I'll move the boys into an apartment, and Natasha can figure out her own situation. He paused. It won't make up for what was stolen, but it's something. It's the only thing I have that's worth anything. I studied him. This man I'd never really liked, never really trusted, but had tolerated for the sake of family harmony. This man who was now offering to strip himself of everything to make partial amends for a crime he'd helped enable. Why? I asked. Why would you do that? Because I have 2 sons who are watching their mother become a monster, and I want them to see that someone in this family chose to do the right thing, even if it's too late, even if it doesn't matter. His eyes were wet. I can't fix what happened, Victor. I can't give your mother back those 8 years. But I can show my boys that when everything fell apart, their father tried to make it right. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the air conditioning. I'll talk to my mother, I said finally. It's her decision. Gregory nodded. That's all I ask. He stood, then hesitated at the door. Victor, I'm sorry for all of it. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am. You're right, I said. It doesn't mean anything, but it's a start. He left. I sat at my desk for a long time, staring at the wall, thinking about guilt and redemption, and whether some debts could ever really be repaid. That evening, I told my mother about Gregory's offer. She listened in silence, her tea growing cold on the table beside her. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Gregory was always the weakest of them, she said finally. Not evil exactly, just spineless. He saw what was happening and chose not to see it. That's a different kind of wrong. Do you want the house? I want. She paused, considering. I want those boys to have a chance. They didn't choose their parents. They didn't choose to benefit from stolen money. And if Gregory is willing to give up everything to show them what accountability looks like, she met my eyes. Accept the house. Sell it. Put the money in a trust for the boys' education. Real education. Not whatever nonsense Natasha was pretending to fund with my money. You want to give the money to the boys? After what Natasha did? The boys are innocent, Vitya. They're victims, too, in their own way. And if their grandmother can't save them from their mother's choices, at least she can give them a path forward. She smiled slightly. Besides, it will infuriate Natasha. She'll never be able to touch that money, never be able to use it for herself. It will sit there, growing, waiting for her sons to become adults who are nothing like her. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Even now, my mother was thinking 3 moves ahead. I'll call Catherine tomorrow. We'll draw up the paperwork. Good. She picked up her tea, frowned at its coldness, and set it back down. Now tell me about the criminal case. What's happening with Konstantin? What was happening with Konstantin was a slow-motion collapse. His lawyer had filed a flurry of motions, challenging the evidence, questioning my mother's competency assessment, claiming the testimony of the cooperating doctors was coerced. Each motion was denied. The evidence was too strong, the documentation too thorough. By the end of the week, the prosecutor had enough to present to a grand jury. Diana Walsh, the elder abuse specialist, called Catherine to give us advance notice. Grand jury convenes next Monday, Catherine told me over the phone. Based on what Walsh has, indictments are virtually certain. Multiple counts of elder abuse, financial exploitation, conspiracy to commit fraud, falsification of legal documents. Konstantin is looking at 8 to 12 years if convicted on all charges. And Natasha. Similar charges, but her cooperation is being considered.
If she testifies against Konstantin and provides additional evidence, Walsh might recommend 4 to 6 years, possibly with early release for good behavior. 4 to 6 years. My sister might be out in 3 with good behavior.
It seemed too light for 8 years of helping to imprison our mother, but it was something. It was consequences. What about the doctors? All 4 are facing charges. The medical board has already suspended their licenses, pending the outcome of the criminal cases. Dr. Hendricks is cooperating fully. He'll probably get probation and community service in exchange for his testimony. The others, she paused. They'll do time. Not as much as Konstantin, but enough. Enough. I wondered if there was any amount of prison time that would be enough for what they'd done. For the doctors who had looked into my mother's alert, aware eyes and written that she was gone. For my brother and sister who had treated her like a corpse to be looted. Victor? Catherine's voice pulled me back. There's one more thing. What? Konstantin has been trying to contact your mother. He sent letters to the house. Your house. 3 of them, in the past 4 days. My blood ran cold. The restraining order prohibits direct contact, visits, and phone calls. Letters exist in a gray area. We're filing a motion to have them included, but in the meantime, she sighed, I wanted you to know. The letters are being held at my office. Your mother doesn't need to see them unless she wants to. What do they say? A long pause. They're emotional. He claims he was trying to protect her, that the conservatorship was for her own good, that he never meant for things to go this far. There are accusations against you, that you've brainwashed her, turned her against him, stolen her away from her real family. Another pause. And there are threats. Threats. Not explicit, nothing that would hold up as criminal intimidation, but the tone is disturbing. He talks about how this isn't over, how he won't let them win, how everyone will see the truth eventually. I've forwarded copies to the prosecutor. It's being documented. I thought about my brother, the man I'd grown up with, the man who used to make me laugh, who used to be my friend before he became my exploiter. Now he was sending threatening letters to an 82-year-old woman he'd already tortured for 8 years. Increase security at the house, I said. Whatever it costs. Already done. I have a private firm monitoring your property around the clock. If Constantin comes within 500 feet, we'll know about it. Good. Victor. Catherine's voice softened. How are you holding up? I looked out my office window at the Chicago skyline, the city I'd built my career in, the city where my family had fallen apart. I don't know, I said honestly. I keep waiting to feel something. Relief, satisfaction, closure. But mostly I just feel tired. Tired and sad and angry all at once. That's normal. You're grieving. Grieving what? No one died. The family you thought you had. The brother and sister you believed existed. That kind of loss is real, Victor. It deserves to be mourned. I didn't have an answer for that. So I just said goodbye and hung up and sat in my office watching the light change over the city and tried to figure out how to mourn people who were still alive but were already dead to me. Friday night. Elena and I were having dinner with my mother when the doorbell rang. I checked the security camera first, a habit I'd developed in the past week. The screen showed 2 figures on our front porch. Teenagers. Tall, awkward, obviously uncomfortable. My nephews, Natasha's sons, Michael and David. I opened the door. They looked at me with expressions I couldn't read. Fear, maybe, or shame, or some combination of both. Uncle Victor, Michael said. He was 17, the older one. We're sorry to just show up, but we needed to talk to you. To Grandma. Mom doesn't know we're here. I stepped aside. Come in. They entered hesitantly, like they expected to be thrown out at any moment. When they saw my mother in the dining room, they both stopped. David, the younger one, 15, started to cry. Grandma, he whispered, You're okay. You're really okay. My mother rose from her chair and opened her arms. Both boys crossed to her and she held them. These children she'd watched grow up from behind the mask of dementia. These grandchildren who had been told she was gone when she was right there, hearing everything. I'm okay, she said softly. I'm right here. We sat in the living room. Elena brought tea. The boys perched on the edge of the couch like they might bolt at any moment. We found out what happened, Michael said. The real story, not what Mom was telling us. Dad told us everything. About the money, about the fake diagnosis, about... He couldn't finish. About what your mother did to me. My mother finished gently. Michael nodded miserably. We didn't know, Grandma. I swear we didn't know. Every time we visited you, every time you just sat there staring at nothing, we thought you were really sick. We thought you were gone. His voice cracked. We grieved for you. We cried. And the whole time, you were right there, and Mom was... He couldn't continue. David spoke up, his voice small. Are you going to hate us? Because of what Mom did. My mother reached out and took his hand. David, look at me. He did, tears still streaming. What your mother did was her choice, her crime. You are not responsible for the sins of your parents. You were children. You believed what you were told. The same way children always do. She squeezed his hand. I could never hate you, either of you. But we benefited from it, Michael said. Our school, our clothes, our house. It was all paid for with your money. Money Mom stole. Your school was paid for by your Uncle Victor, I said quietly. Every tuition check came from me. They both turned to stare at me. I didn't know what your mother was doing, I continued. I thought I was helping family. That's what I was always told, that your parents were struggling, that they needed support. So I paid. For years. I met their eyes. You didn't steal anything, boys. You were used as a cover story, the same way I was. Michael was silent for a long moment. Then, Dad said he's giving the house to Grandma. He said she's going to sell it and put the money in a trust for our education. My mother nodded. That's the plan. Why? David asked. After everything, why would you do that for us? Because you're my grandsons. Because you're innocent. And because I want you to have a future that isn't defined by what your mother did. She smiled slightly. Consider it an investment. I'm betting that you'll turn out better than she did. The boys stayed for 2 hours. They talked, they cried, they asked questions I couldn't always answer. When they left, my mother hugged them at the door for a long time. Call me, she said. Visit when you can. Whatever happens with your mother, you will always be my grandchildren. After they were gone, she sat down heavily in her chair. Those poor boys, she said quietly, growing up with a mother like that. Discovering who she really is. They'll survive, I said. They're strong, and now they know the truth. The truth? She shook her head slowly. I spent 8 years waiting for the truth to come out. Now that it has, I'm not sure it's made anything better. Just different. Just clearer. I sat beside her and took her hand. Clearer is better, I said, even when it hurts. She squeezed my fingers. Yes, she said. I suppose it is. Outside, the Chicago night was quiet. Somewhere in the city, my brother was writing threatening letters and my sister was negotiating her betrayal of him. Somewhere, doctors were losing their licenses and lawyers were filing motions and a grand jury was preparing to hand down indictments. But here, in my house, my mother was safe. My nephews had chosen truth over comfortable lies. And something that felt almost like hope was beginning to take root in the wreckage of what had been. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't healing. Not yet. But it was a start. Monday, 4:47 p.m. The grand jury returned its verdict. Catherine called me while I was still at the office, her voice carrying a note of quiet triumph I'd never heard from her before. Indictments on all counts, she said. Constantine is facing 17 felony charges.
Elder abuse in the first degree, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, conspiracy to commit fraud, falsification of medical documents, forgery, and this is the big one, attempted grand theft through fraudulent estate planning. 17.
Charges, I repeated. 17. The prosecutor is recommending no bail, given the flight risk and the threatening letters he's been sending. There's a warrant being issued as we speak. They're going to arrest him. Tonight, most likely. The police are already on their way to his condo. A pause. Victor, I want you to stay home this evening. Keep your mother inside. We don't know how Constantine will react when they come for him, and I don't want either of you anywhere he might go. Understood. One more thing. Natasha's indictment came through as well. 9 counts. Her cooperation deal is still on the table, but the prosecutor wanted to make sure she understood the alternative. Catherine's voice hardened. She's expected to turn herself in tomorrow morning. If she doesn't, there will be a warrant for her too. I hung up and sat at my desk, staring at nothing. 17 felony charges. My brother was going to prison. My sister was going to prison. The family I'd grown up with was going to be scattered across the Illinois correctional system like debris from an explosion. This was what I'd wanted. This was what my mother deserved. This was justice. So why did I feel like I was drowning? I drove home through evening traffic, my mind churning. The radio was playing something. News, music, I couldn't tell. Just noise filling the silence. I thought about the last time I'd seen Constantine. The courthouse steps. his face a mask of devastation, looking back at our mother with an expression I still couldn't read. Had there been regret in that look, remorse, or just calculation? The predator's mind already working on the next angle, the next manipulation. I'd known my brother for 52 years. I'd shared a bedroom with him until I was 12. I'd taught him to ride a bike, covered for him when he snuck out as a teenager, stood as best man at his first wedding, and now I realized I'd never known him at all. The brother I remembered had been a performance, a mask worn to keep me compliant, generous, blind. My phone buzzed. Text from the security company Catherine had hired. Alert, vehicle matching subject's description. Observed on your street 15 minutes ago. Did not stop. Patrol unit following at distance. Advise caution. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Constantine had driven past my house, while the police were on their way to arrest him. He'd come to look at where I lived, where our mother lived. I pressed harder on the accelerator. I pulled into my driveway at 6:23 p.m. The house looked normal. Lights on in the living room, Elena's car in the garage. The security patrol was parked across the street, 2 men in a dark sedan watching my approach. I nodded to them as I got out of my car. One of them raised a hand in acknowledgement. Inside, Elena met me in the hallway. Her face was pale. "The security company called," she said. "They said Constantine drove by. Victor, what's happening? The grand jury indicted him. 17 counts. They're arresting him tonight." I pulled her close. "Where's Mama?" "In her room. She wanted to rest before dinner." Elena pulled back, studied my face. "You look terrible." "I feel terrible. I feel like I'm watching a building collapse and I can't look away." "The building was already collapsing, Victor. You just stopped pretending it was standing." She kissed my cheek and went to check on dinner. I stood in the hallway, listening to the quiet sounds of my house, the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the grandfather clock, the muffled sound of Elena moving in the kitchen. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. The doorbell rang. I froze, checked my phone. No alert from security. Walked to the door and looked through the peephole. Constantine. He was standing on my front porch, hands in his coat pockets, looking directly at the peephole as if he knew I was watching. His face was calm. Too calm. I should have called the police. Should have called the security team. Should have done anything except what I did. I opened the door. "Victor." His voice was quiet, steady. "We need to talk. The police are looking for you. There's a warrant." "I know." He didn't move. "That's why I'm here. I wanted to see you one more time. Before." He trailed off. "Can I come in?" Every instinct told me to say no, to close the door, to call Catherine, call the police, call anyone except stand here talking to a man who had tortured our mother for 8 years. But this was my brother, and whatever he'd become, whatever he'd done, part of me still needed to understand why. "Outside," I said. "We talk on the porch. You don't come in." I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. The evening air was cool. Across the street, I could see the security team watching, ready to move if needed. Constantine followed my gaze. "You're watchdogs. Very thorough." He turned back to me. "You've thought of everything, haven't you? The lawyers, the doctors, the security. You dismantled my entire life in 3 weeks. You dismantled it yourself. I just stopped helping you hide the wreckage." A flicker of something crossed his face. Anger, maybe, or pain. It was hard to tell with him. It had always been hard to tell. "Do you know why I did it?" he asked. "Do you have any idea what it was like growing up in your shadow? My shadow. Victor the golden child. Victor the hard worker. Victor who built a business from nothing. Who made Papa proud. Who did everything right." His voice was bitter. "You have no idea what it's like to be the other son. The one who could never measure up. The one who was always compared and always found wanting. So you stole from our mother because you felt inadequate. I took what should have been mine." The calm facade cracked. "Papa left everything to her. Everything, and she was just going to let it sit there, gathering dust, while I struggled. While Natasha struggled. You didn't need that money, Victor. You were already rich, but we needed it. We deserved it. Deserved it! I stared at him. You deserved to imprison our mother in a body you told the world was broken. You deserved to make her sit in silence while you stole her life savings. You deserved to plan her death so you could steal even more. I never planned her death. You told someone she wouldn't last another month. You were counting on it, waiting for it. I stepped closer to him. You were going to let our mother die, thinking no one knew what she'd endured, thinking she'd lost. That's what you deserved, Constantine. He was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, older. I told myself it didn't matter, that she was already gone, mentally, that we were just managing her decline. He looked at me. I believed it, Victor. For a long time, I really believed it. The doctors said she was incompetent. The tests showed deterioration. How was I supposed to know she was faking? You paid the doctors to lie. I paid them to confirm what I thought I was seeing. An old woman losing her mind. A burden that needed managing. He ran a hand through his hair. When did she stop being our mother and become a problem to solve? I don't even remember. It happened so gradually, one decision at a time. One transfer at a time, until I couldn't see her anymore. Just the money. Is that supposed to be an excuse? No. He shook his head. No, there's no excuse. I know that now. I've known it since the courtroom, since I saw her stand up and speak and look at me with those eyes. His voice cracked. She was in there the whole time, watching me, hating me, and I never knew. What do you want, Constantine? Forgiveness. I don't have that to give. I want you to understand that I'm not a monster. He met my eyes. I did monstrous things, I know that. But I didn't start out as a monster. I started out as your brother, as Mama's son, as someone who made one bad decision, and then another, and then couldn't find a way back. That's everyone's excuse. Everyone who does terrible things says they didn't mean for it to go so far. Because it's true, he laughed. A hollow, broken sound. You think villains know they're villains? You think I woke up one morning and decided to be evil? It doesn't work that way, Victor. It's 1,000 small choices, each one easier than the last, until you look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself anymore. Behind me, I heard the door open. Elena's voice. Victor? The security team is asking if everything's okay. It's fine, I said without turning around. Give us a minute. The door closed. Constantine looked at me, really looked at me, for what felt like the first time in years. I'm going to prison, he said. I know that. 10 years, maybe more. By the time I get out, I'll be in my 60s. Mama will probably be gone. You'll have moved on with your life. Everything I had, the condo, the money, the reputation, it's all gone already. You did this to yourself. I know. He nodded slowly. I know. But Victor, I want you to know something. Not as an excuse. Not to make you feel sorry for me. Just the truth. What truth? When we were kids, before all this, before I became whatever I became, I loved you. You were my brother, and I looked up to you, and I wanted to be like you. His eyes glistened. I don't know when that changed. When the envy turned into something darker. But there was a time when we were family. Real family. And I'm sorry I destroyed that. Sirens in the distance. Getting closer. Constantine heard them too. He straightened his coat, squared his shoulders. I'm going to turn myself in, he said. I'm not going to run. I'm not going to fight. Whatever happens, I'm going to face it. He paused. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect Mama to forgive me. But maybe someday, years from now, you'll remember that in the end I didn't make you drag me away in handcuffs. I came to say goodbye, and I walked into that prison myself. The sirens were loud now. I could see the flash of lights at the end of my street. Constantine turned and walked down my front steps. Slowly, deliberately. He walked to the sidewalk and stood there, hands at his sides, waiting. The police cars pulled up. Officers emerged, hands on weapons, shouting commands. Constantine raised his hands, dropped to his knees, let them approach and cuff him without resistance. As they lifted him to his feet and led him to the car, he looked back at me one last time. "Tell Mama I'm sorry," he called out. "Tell her I remember who I used to be." Then the car door closed and they drove him away, and I stood on my porch watching the lights disappear around the corner. Inside, Elena was waiting in the hallway. She didn't say anything, just held me while I stood there, shaking, trying to process what had just happened. "He surrendered," I said finally. "He just gave up." I saw. She pulled back, looked at my face. "Are you okay?" "No." I shook my head. "I don't know. He said things. He tried to explain, and I don't know if any of it was real or if it was just another manipulation. Does it matter?" I thought about it. Maybe not. Maybe the actions are what count. The things he did, not the reasons behind them. I looked toward the stairs. I need to tell Mama. She's awake. She heard the sirens. I climbed the stairs slowly, feeling decades older than I had that morning. My mother was sitting in the chair by her window, looking out at the street. The police lights were gone now, but she was still staring at the empty space where they'd been. "They arrested him," she said. "Not a question." "Yes." "Did he resist?" "No. He came here first. Talked to me. Then he surrendered. Peacefully." My mother was quiet for a long moment. Then, "What did he say?" I sat down on the edge of her bed and told her. All of it. The excuses, the explanations, the confession that he'd stopped seeing her as a person, the claim that he'd loved me once, before envy turned to something darker, the request to tell her he was sorry, that he remembered who he used to be. When I finished, she was silent for a long time. "He was a good boy once," she said finally. They both were, Constantine and Natasha. I remember them as children, laughing, playing, full of life. I used to watch them and think how lucky I was. How blessed. Her voice trembled. "When did they change? When did they become people who could do this to their own mother?" "I don't know, Mama. Neither do I." She wiped her eyes. "That's the worst part. I've had 8 years to think about it, and I still don't understand. Was it something I did? Something I didn't do? Was there a moment when I could have stopped it, if I'd just paid attention? This isn't your fault, isn't it?" She looked at me. "I raised them, Victor. I shaped them, whatever they became. It started with me. You raised me too, and I didn't turn out like them." She was quiet. Then she reached out and took my hand. "No," she said softly. "No, you didn't. And I thank God for that every day." She squeezed my fingers. "You're the reason I survived, Vitya. Knowing that one of my children was still good, still honest, still the person I raised him to be. You gave me something to hold on to." Something to wait for. I didn't trust myself to speak, so I just sat there, holding my mother's hand, while the night deepened outside and somewhere across the city my brother began his first night in jail. "He asked me to tell you he's sorry," I said finally. "He said he remembers who he used to be." My mother was quiet for a long moment. "I remember too," she said. "That's the tragedy, Vitya. I remember exactly who he used to be. And that makes what he became so much harder to bear." She closed her eyes. I stayed with her until she fell asleep, then went downstairs to where Elena was waiting. "Is she okay?" Elena asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I don't know if any of us are okay. But we're here. We're together. And for tonight, that's enough." We sat together in the living room, not talking, just being present with each other. Outside, the night was quiet. The drama was over, at least for today. Tomorrow there would be more. Court appearances, legal proceedings, the slow machinery of justice grinding forward. But tonight, there was just this. My wife beside me, my mother asleep upstairs, and the strange, hollow peace that comes after a storm has passed. 3 months later, the trial had been a marathon of testimony, evidence, and legal maneuvering. Day after day, I sat in that courtroom, watching the prosecution dismantle my brother's life piece by piece. Bank records, medical documents, the testimony of 3 doctors who had sold their integrity for cash. And through it all, my mother's notebook, projected on screens, read into the record, its careful handwriting blown up large enough for the jury to see every damning detail. Constantine had pleaded not guilty. His lawyer, his third lawyer, After the first two, withdrew, citing irreconcilable differences, mounted a defense built on technicalities and misdirection. The conservatorship was legal, he argued. The transfers were authorized. The medical diagnoses came from licensed professionals. None of it worked. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the foreman's voice was steady as he read the verdicts. Guilty on all 17 counts. I watched Constantine's face as each word landed. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 17 times. His expression didn't change. He'd probably known this was coming since the moment Dr. Hendricks took the stand. But something in his posture shifted, the last hope draining away. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Today, the courtroom was fuller than it had been during the trial. Word had spread. Local news had picked up the story. Chicago man convicted of imprisoning mother in fake dementia scheme. And now there were cameras outside, reporters filling the gallery, the kind of public attention my family had never wanted and could no longer avoid. My mother sat beside me in the front row. She'd insisted on coming, despite Catherine's suggestion that she watch from a private room. I spent 8 years invisible, she'd said. I want him to see me. I want him to know I'm watching. So here she was, 82 years old, straight-backed, clear-eyed, dressed in a dark blue suit that made her look like the formidable woman she'd always been, the woman Constantine had tried to erase. Constantine was brought in through the side door, wearing an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of him. He'd lost weight in the 3 months since his arrest. His face was gaunt, his hair grayer than I remembered. He looked like a man who'd aged a decade in a season. He didn't look at us as he was led to the defense table. Didn't look at anyone, just stared straight ahead, waiting for whatever came next. Judge Chen entered. We rose. She took her seat and opened a thick folder. This court is now in session for the sentencing of Konstantin Volkov, convicted on 17 counts of elder abuse, financial exploitation, conspiracy, and fraud. She looked at Konstantin. Mr. Volkov, do you wish to make a statement before sentencing? Konstantin's lawyer whispered something to him. He shook his head. Then slowly, he stood. Yes, Your Honor. The courtroom went silent. Even the reporters stopped typing. Konstantin turned, not to face the judge, but to face my mother, to face me. I want to apologize, he said. His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. Not because it will change anything, not because I expect forgiveness, but because I need to say it out loud in front of everyone, so there's no question about what I did. He took a breath. I stole from my mother. I paid doctors to lie about her mind. I took her savings, her independence, her voice. I made her a prisoner in her own body so I could take what I wanted. His voice cracked. I told myself she didn't know, that she was already gone. But she was there the whole time, watching, remembering. And I never even noticed. He looked at my mother, really looked at her. Mama, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for every day I sat in your room and talked about you like you weren't there. I'm sorry for every dollar I took, every lie I told, every time I called you a burden or a problem when you could hear every word. Tears were streaming down his face now. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I know. I know what I did, and I will spend the rest of my life living with that knowledge. He turned to me. Victor, you were always the better son. I hated you for it. I envied you. I used your generosity against you for 30 years. He shook his head. You deserved a brother, a real one. I'm sorry I could never be that. He turned back to the judge. I'm ready for sentencing, Your Honor. Whatever you decide, I accept it. He sat down. The courtroom remained silent for a long moment. Judge Chen's expression was unreadable. Thank you, Mr. Volkov. She turned to the prosecution table. Ms. Walsh, does the state have a sentencing recommendation? Diana Walsh stood. Yes, Your Honor. Given the severity of the crimes, the extended duration of the abuse, and the deliberate exploitation of a vulnerable family member, the state recommends the maximum sentence on each count to be served consecutively. That would be 23 years in state prison. A murmur rippled through the gallery. 23 years. Constantine would be 75 when he got out. if he survived that long. Judge Chen nodded. And the defense, Constantine's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we ask for leniency. My client has shown genuine remorse. He cooperated with authorities after his arrest. He has no prior criminal record. We believe a sentence of 8 to 10 years with the possibility of parole would serve the interests of justice while allowing for the possibility of rehabilitation. Judge Chen was silent for a moment, reviewing her notes. Then she looked up. I've presided over many cases involving elder abuse, she said. It's a crime that often goes undetected, unpunished, because the victims are seen as unreliable witnesses. Too old, too confused, too easy to dismiss. Her voice hardened. This case is different. This victim fought back. She documented her abuse with the precision of a prosecutor. She waited, silently, for 8 years, because she knew no one would believe her without proof. She looked at Constantine. Mr. Volkov, your apology today was eloquent, perhaps even sincere, but it doesn't change what you did. You didn't just steal money. You stole your mother's identity, her autonomy, her place in the world. You reduced a vibrant, intelligent woman to a prop in your financial scheme. And you did it deliberately, systematically, over nearly a decade. She closed her folder. On the 17 counts for which you have been convicted, I sentence you to serve 18 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections. You will be eligible for parole after serving 12 years. Additionally, you are ordered to pay full restitution in the amount of $2,253,000 to the victim, Irina Volkov, to be garnished from any assets, income, or future earnings. 18 years. Constantine would be 70 when he was eligible for parole. 76 at the end of his sentence, if he lived that long. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell. Natasha's sentencing was the following week. She had taken the deal in exchange for her testimony against Constantine, testimony that had been damning, detailed, and delivered with the cold precision of someone saving themselves at any cost. She'd pleaded guilty to reduced charges. The prosecutor had recommended 5 years, with eligibility for parole after 3. I didn't go to her sentencing. Neither did my mother. I've seen enough courtrooms, my mother said when I asked. I've heard enough apologies. Let her face the judge alone. That's what she deserves. Catherine went in our place and called afterward with the results. 5 years, she said. Just as expected. She'll be out in 3 if she behaves. The judge made a point of saying that her cooperation was noted, but that it didn't excuse her participation in the scheme. Did she say anything? In her statement, she cried, a lot, talked about how Constantine manipulated her, how she didn't understand the full scope of what was happening, how she was just trying to help her family. Catherine's voice was dry. The judge wasn't impressed. Neither was anyone else in the courtroom. And the boys? Were they there? Gregory brought them. They sat in the back, didn't approach her, didn't speak to her, just watched. A pause. Michael looked angry. David looked broken. Neither of them cried when the sentence was read. I thought about my nephews, 17 and 15, watching their mother be sentenced to prison, learning that the woman who raised them had helped imprison their grandmother, steal millions, planned to steal more. What happens to them now? Gregory has full custody. He's moving them to a smaller place, apartment in Evanston. The house sale closed last week. The trust for their education is fully funded. Catherine paused. They're going to be okay, Victor. Not right away, but eventually. They have their father. They have each other. And they have you and your mother if they want you. They called last night, I said. Both of them. Michael wanted to know if Grandma still wanted to see them. After everything. What did she say? She said she'd be waiting for them whenever they were ready, that she'd never stopped loving them, even when she couldn't show it. My voice caught. She told Michael that he wasn't his mother, that he got to choose who he wanted to be, and that she believed he'd choose well. Catherine was quiet for a moment. Your mother is a remarkable woman, Victor. I know. The doctors faced their own reckonings. Dr. Hendricks, who had cooperated fully, received 3 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and permanent revocation of his medical license. He would never practice medicine again, but he wouldn't go to prison. Dr. Pierce and Dr. Huang, who had cooperated after their initial arrests, each received 2 years in a minimum security facility and similar license revocations. Dr. Wallace, who had refused to cooperate until the very end, got 4 years. He'd tried to maintain his innocence even as the evidence piled up around him. The jury hadn't believed him. Neither had the judge. 4 doctors, my mother said when I told her the final sentences. 4 medical professionals who looked me in the eye, asked me questions I answered correctly, and then wrote that I was gone. She shook her head. What does it take for someone to do that? To know they're destroying a person's life and do it anyway for money? I don't know, Mama. Neither do I. And I sat in that wheelchair for 8 years, watching them, trying to understand. She looked out the window. I still don't. Maybe I never will. Does it matter? Understanding. She was quiet for a long moment. I used to think it did. I used to think that if I could just understand why they did it, why Constantine and Natasha, why the doctors, why everyone who helped, I could make peace with it somehow. She turned to face me. But I've realized something, Vitya. Some things aren't meant to be understood. Some things are just meant to be survived. And have you survived? A smile crossed her face. Small, but real. I'm here, aren't I? Free, speaking my own words, making my own choices. She reached out and took my hand. I'm not the same woman I was 8 years ago. That woman is gone forever. But the woman I am now, she's stronger. She survived things that should have broken her. And she's still here, still fighting, still refusing to disappear. That's more than surviving, Mama. That's winning. Maybe. She squeezed my hand. Or maybe winning and surviving are the same thing, when you're up against people who wanted you to do neither. The civil suit settled 2 months after the criminal trials concluded. There wasn't much left to recover. Constantine's condo had been seized and sold. The proceeds went to restitution. Natasha's house had been transferred to the boys' trust before her arrest, so it was protected. The various accounts and investments Constantine had created, with stolen money, had mostly been emptied, spent on cars and clothes and vacations and the elaborate fiction of success. In the end, my mother recovered about $340,000, less than 15% of what had been stolen. Catherine had warned us it would be this way. The money was gone. What remained was the accountability. When it's not about the money, my mother said, when Catherine presented the final settlement. It was never about the money. Then what was it about? Catherine asked. My mother was quiet for a moment, considering the question. It was about being heard, she said finally. For 8 years I was silent. For 8 years I watched people I loved treat me like I didn't exist. They took my money, yes, but they also took my voice, my dignity, my place in the world. She looked at Catherine, then at me. This, the trials, the testimony, the public record of what they did. This gives me my voice back. This says to everyone who will ever hear this story that Irina Volkov was not a vegetable. She was not confused. She was a woman who was wronged, who fought back, and who won. She signed the settlement papers with a steady hand. There, she said. It's done, all of it. The courts, the lawyers, the documents. She set down the pen and looked at me. Now we can finally start living. Outside the window, Chicago stretched toward the lake, gray and gold in the autumn light. Somewhere out there, my brother was beginning his first year of an 18-year sentence. My sister was adjusting to life in a minimum security facility. The doctors who had helped them were facing their own consequences. And here, in this room, my mother was signing away, years of legal battle, closing the chapter on the worst betrayal of her life, and looking toward whatever came next, with eyes that had seen everything and refused to close. What do you want to do now, Mama? I asked. She smiled, a real smile, the kind I remembered from my childhood, before any of this had begun. I want to go home, she said. And I want to sit on your patio with a cup of tea and watch the sunset and not think about courtrooms or lawyers or money or any of it. She stood, slowly but steadily. I want to be a grandmother to 2 boys who need someone to believe in them. I want to learn what the world looks like when I'm not watching it through a window I'm pretending not to see through. She took my arm, and we walked out of Catherine's office together, leaving the paperwork behind, stepping into an autumn afternoon. That felt, for the first time in years, like the beginning of something, rather than the end. 1 year later, I'm sitting on my patio as I tell you this, watching the sun set over the garden Elena planted last spring. The roses are in bloom, red and white and pale pink, climbing the trellis she built herself. Beyond them I can see the lights coming on in the guest house we converted for my mother. Her silhouette moves past the window, and I know she's preparing for our Sunday dinner, the way she has every week for the past year. A year. It feels like both forever and no time at all. My mother is 83 now. She moves a little slower than she did, takes afternoon naps she didn't need before, but her mind is sharp as ever. Sharper, maybe, now that she doesn't have to spend every moment pretending it's broken. She reads voraciously, 3 or 4 books a week. She's taken up watercolor painting, covering canvases with images of the garden, the skyline, the faces of people she loves. She says she's making up for lost time. 8 years of silence, she says, requires at least 8 years of noise. She's earned every bit of it. The boys come every other weekend now. Michael turned 18 last month, legally an adult, though he still has the uncertain eyes of a child who's seen too much. He's starting college in the fall, pre-law. He told me he wants to specialize in elder rights. Someone has to protect people like Grandma, he said. Someone has to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. I didn't cry when he said it, but it was close. David is 16, quieter than his brother, more internal. He doesn't talk about what happened as much, but he shows it in other ways. He sits with my mother for hours, listening to her stories about the old country, about my father, about the family before it broke apart. He's learning Russian from her, halting, imperfect, but determined. I want to know where I come from, he told me. The real story, not the one Mom told us. Gregory brings them, waits in the living room while they visit, then takes them home. He and I don't talk much, but there's a respect there that didn't exist before. He kept his word about the house. He kept his word about letting the boys see us. He's trying, in his imperfect way, to be better than he was. Maybe that's all any of us can do. I haven't visited Constantine in prison. I don't know if I ever will. He writes sometimes, letters that arrive in plain envelopes addressed in his careful handwriting. I've opened a few of them. They're what you'd expect. Apologies, explanations, memories of our childhood. He talks about the therapy he's doing, the programs he's enrolled in. He says he's learning to understand why he did what he did. He says he hopes someday I'll be able to forgive him. I don't know if I will. Forgiveness isn't something you can force. It comes when it comes, or it doesn't come at all. What I do know is that I don't hate him anymore. The rage I felt in those first months, the burning, consuming fury at what he'd done, has faded into something quieter. Sadness, maybe. Grief for the brother I thought I had. The family I thought we were. My mother doesn't read his letters. She doesn't want to. I spent 8 years listening to him without being able to respond. She said when I asked, "I've heard everything he has to say. I don't need to hear it again." Natasha will be released in 7 months. Early, as expected. She's written too. Not to me, but to the boys. Gregory shows me the letters sometimes. They're full of excuses, justifications, attempts to explain why she did what she did without actually taking responsibility for any of it. The boys read them and don't respond. They're learning, I think, to recognize manipulation when they see it. It's a hard lesson, but it's one they need. Maria still visits every week. She and my mother have become genuine friends. Not caregiver and patient, but 2 women who went through something terrible together and came out the other side. They have tea on the patio, swap stories about their lives, debate politics and religion, and everything in between. Maria's thinking about retiring next year. She says she's seen enough suffering to last a lifetime. Last month she called me with news. "Mr. Volkov," she said. She still calls me that, despite my insistence on Victor. "I have to tell you something. A journalist contacted me. She's writing a book about elder abuse, and she wants to include your mother's story, with your permission, of course." I talked to my mother about it. She thought for a long time before answering. "Yes," she said finally. "Tell them yes."
If my story can help even one person recognize the signs, if it can save even one family from what we went through, then it's worth telling. All of it. The journalist came last week. She spent 3 days with us, recording everything. My mother talked for hours about the diagnosis, the imprisonment, the years of silent documentation, about Konstantin and Natasha, about the doctors who sold their integrity, about the system that failed her and how she fought back anyway. When it was over, the journalist looked at my mother with something like awe. "You waited 8 years," she said. 8 years of pretending to be gone. How did you survive it?" My mother smiled, that sharp, knowing smile I've come to love. "I had something to live for," she said. "I had truth, I had justice, and I had one son who I knew when the time came would believe me." She looked at me. "Victor saved my life, you know. Not by rescuing me, by believing me. That's all I needed." One person who saw me as a person, and not a problem. The journalist wrote that down. I hope she includes it in the book. Because that's the lesson, isn't it? That's what this whole terrible story comes down to. See the people in your life.
Really see them, not as burdens or resources or obligations, as people, with their own stories, their own truths, their own right to be heard. Because when you stop seeing someone as a person, you become capable of anything. I think about that phone call sometimes. The one that started everything. 3:17 in the morning. Maria's trembling voice. "Your mother is whispering something strange in her sleep. If I hadn't answered, would any of this have happened? Would my mother still be sitting in that wheelchair, watching her children steal from her, waiting for a rescue that never came? Would I still be writing checks to Konstantin, funding Natasha's lifestyle, playing the role of generous brother while they laughed behind my back? I'll never know, and maybe it doesn't matter. What matters is that I answered, that I listened, that when my mother finally told me the truth, I believed her. That's the choice we all have, every day, to see or to look away, to believe or to dismiss, to act or to accept. My brother and sister chose to look away from who our mother really was. They chose to see her as a resource, a problem, an obstacle to their own desires, and that choice destroyed them. I chose differently. Not because I'm a better person, I'm not sure I am, but because when the moment came, I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't be the version of Victor they needed me to be. I had to become someone new, someone who could face the truth, no matter how painful, someone who could save his mother, and in doing so, save himself. The sun is almost down now. The garden is fading into shadow, the roses closing for the night. Through the guest house window, I can see my mother setting the table for dinner. Elena is in the kitchen, putting the final touches on the meal we'll share together. In a few minutes, I'll go inside. We'll sit together, Elena, my mother, and me, and we'll eat and talk and laugh about things that have nothing to do with courtrooms or betrayal or the years we lost. We'll be a family, a smaller family than I once had, but a real one, built on truth instead of lies, on love instead of obligation. I don't know what the future holds. My mother is 83. She won't be here forever. The pain of what happened will never fully fade. The scars we carry will always be there, hidden beneath the surface. But we're here. We survived. And every day we have together is a day we weren't supposed to have. A day stolen back from the people who tried to take everything from us. That's enough. It has to be enough. Because in the end, that's what family really is. Not blood. Not obligation. Not the roles we're assigned at birth. Family is who shows up. Family is who sees you. Family is who believes you when the world says you're invisible. My mother taught me that. In 8 years of silence, she taught me that. And I will never forget. The guest house door opens. My mother steps onto the path, moving carefully in the fading light. She sees me watching and waves. "Vitya," she calls. "Dinner is ready. Stop brooding and come eat." I smile, stand, walk toward her across the garden, through the roses she helped Elena plant, under the trellis we built together last summer. She takes my arm when I reach her, the way she used to when I was a child, and she was teaching me to walk. "I'm proud of you," she says quietly. I don't say it enough, but I am. Prouder than you'll ever know. I learned from the best, I tell her. She laughs. That bright, clear laugh I went so many years without hearing. "Flatterer," she says. "Come, Elena made your favorite. We walk inside together, into the warmth and the light and the smell of good food. The door closes behind us, shutting out the night, shutting out the past, shutting out everything except this moment and these people, and this improbable, hard-won peace. This is my life now. This is what survival looks like. This is the new beginning. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel.
Your support helps me share more stories like this one, stories about truth, about justice, about the strength it takes to stand up against the people who should love you most. And if you know someone who's going through something similar, if you suspect someone you love is being exploited, manipulated, or silenced, don't look away. Believe them, see them, be the person who answers the phone at 3 a.m. Because sometimes that's all it takes to save a life. Leave a comment below and tell me, what would you have done in Victor's place? And have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and doing what's right? Thank you for listening.
Thank you for being here. And remember, the people in your life are more than what they can give you. See them,